Thank you, Nate.
So Anna, just let us know when it's rolling and I'll call us back to order.
Beth, we're waiting for the board meeting to show up on YouTube before we begin.
Okay, thank you. Hello, by the way.
So I'm still looking on YouTube and I don't see it. I keep hitting refresh. Okay, it is 6:02, and at some point, we are going to start the meeting as soon as we get confirmation from YouTube that we are broadcasting. So we're waiting just a few minutes. Wendy, could you call your contact and see if they see it?
Yeah, I just texted and asked.
So I've subscribed to the FBUSD TV channel and I still don't see it. And Nate, you're sure we're going, yes? Yes, thank you. Okay, so Nate can see it from his personal account. I don't see it on the FBUSD station.
I did not see you. I was just getting ready to reply to you.
Yeah, my contact says we're not on yet.
So I have someone.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Gary Lewis out there. He's saying that he's seeing it, that it's streaming just fine. So, okay. Thank you, Gary Lewis out there. Okay, get started then.
Okay, I will call us back to order at 6:05. So I have a statement to read. As authorized by the Governor's Emergency Executive Order issued on March 12th, the Fort Bragg Unified School District Board of Trustees will conduct a Board of Education meetings via video conference telecommute until further notice. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to and during the board meeting. So you still can email Anna gets those right to our computer and will share with us if we have them. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, which is approximately 390 words. Speakers are cautioned that under California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. So again, please know that you can email ahead of time and or during the meeting, because again, that email is monitored all evening. So we do have final action on a closed session item. The board has completed the superintendent's evaluation with an overall positive rating with satisfactory or better. And so that has been completed for the 2019-2020 school year. And that was all the action that was finished in closed session. So do we have any public participation on non-agenda items?
We do not.
Okay. So I will ask if I don't believe anything needs to be moved or pulled from the agenda. Is that correct?
The only things that were pulled, and then the agenda was republished as a revised, and that was the budget item.
Okay.
So
you can,
else.
so people at home, you can see that that is stricken from reports and moved to action. So then I will ask for an approval of the agenda as it was presented.
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Opposed? Okay. All right. Trustee Mattson is unable to attend this evening, so I decided to that I thought it was kind of odd to do the Pledge of Allegiance on camera with no flag. So I found 2 bits of quote and a fact for August. So I thought most of the time Martin Luther King Jr. is celebrated in January when his birthday is, but the actual speech was given on August 28th of 1963. So I just wanted to honor that as August. And then a quote that I found that it says, "May we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right." And that was Peter Marshall. And I just thought, as we're starting this endeavor of distance learning and our right to education, I just thought this was kind of a little bit timely for that at this time. So there is our patriotic exercise. And so we'll move on to number 5 for acknowledgements. And Becky, if you would like to introduce the new staff. You're muted.
Okay. We really did not anticipate hiring new staff during a COVID year, and we are excited that we were able to bring on new staff. So Amy Amos comes to us. She is the new severely handicapped teacher at Fort Bragg Middle School. We're excited to have her. Carl Cook is our new counselor for Dana Gray. He comes to us from Southern California. He had an outstanding interview. We're excited for all that he can bring. Kirsten Hawk actually began with us in the spring semester. She is pretty fabulous and has a math degree and is going to be doing some great things at Fort Bragg Middle School. Christopher Neller comes to us. We actually hired him early, and then we thought that we had to rescind it, and then we got him back. So it's huge that he's with us. So thank you, Mr. Neller. We're incredibly excited. Michael Policki is one of the true rock stars in the district. He joined the IT team, and let me tell you, he is earning his money. And thank you for being here, Mr. Policki, because he is doing a great job and really enabling great IT things to happen. And Ari Rule is incredibly excited. And then we have Ashton Pollock, who is not really a new hire. He was an aide for us last year, but came to us as a teacher. And then not on here is Michaela Del Stuckey. She was actually a secretary. She's not a new hire, but she's moving over into the teaching ranks. So pretty exciting. These are new hires to the district. So welcome to all our new folks. We are excited to have you join our FBUSD team.
Okay, and I do want to acknowledge that we are very sad that we can't have our little reception open house. That was such a nice event last year. We invited all staff to come to that for this first August board meeting, and it was a very nice. The room was packed. It was a very nice, short little evening. But I just want to thank Diana for bringing that idea to us, and hopefully next August we can be back in person and have that event again. Okay, so moving on to communication. I don't know. I know the board did receive a link with an article from CDC, excuse me, from Nancy Bennett today. So thank you for that. And did any other board members receive anything else? Okay. All right. Okay, so we have public participation on agenda items. And I am going to read, we have one, unless anything's come in last minute.
Nothing else has come in now.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read that during the action item. It's regarding school opening. So we'll read that at that time. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. So we'll move on to reports. And the first one is our board report. We can talk about activities or things to report on. So I don't know who wants to go first.
I can go first. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. This is Scott. Sorry, I'm not on camera this evening, but I haven't obviously attended any activities or anything. I've just been talking to a lot of parents, and just want to acknowledge all the hard work and dedication that not only the staff, but families are doing to prepare for this school year. I know they're strange and scary times, and just appreciate everyone's commitment, dedication to giving our kids the best education they can get over the next few months. And just a reminder to be kind to one another. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you.
So I can go next. I checked in with Miss Erickson at Redwood, and a big shout out. I think staff is excited and ready to roll out next Wednesday. And she wanted me to share the Chromebook pickup days. There's one tomorrow at Redwood from 7:30 to 2:30, and then Saturday at 10:30 and 12:30. And the other priority for them the first week is to get everyone up and rolling and access with internet. So families just be patient. And once everyone's up and rolling, the rigor of academics will be huge. So that's their goal for the first week, is to get everyone, the connectivity is their priority. And like Scott says, be patient with everyone, and it'll be a good year. And I also just wanted to, like I'm sure everyone else, staff and board members have spent way too much time trying to stay up to date, listening to this, the state level, the county, the taking advantage of CDE. They've had tons of webinars, CSBA, and then also just other local board meetings, and everyone's in the same boat. I mean, at least the board level, families are all in different boats. Some are, in a yacht, some are in a canoe with a hole in it. So I just feel for everyone involved, because it's not easy. It's not easy for staff. They've, thinking about all that has to take place the first few weeks really to get rolling is huge. So I just want to thank everyone for, I'm sure, putting in way too many hours and overthinking everything, and to just be show some grace and be patient with everyone, and do your Keenans, because I've started mine.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. I touched base with Laura Vieira, principal at middle school. She reported that everyone's ready to go. Their classrooms are set with their smart TVs for remote learning, and they're going to self-contained classes this year so that all students will just have one teacher instead of moving from class to class, and they feel that will be a lot easier for students and parents to navigate. So they're excited about that. I wanted to give a huge shout out also to the teachers, admin, counselors, support staff, everybody. It's amazing. It's going to be tough, but I'm impressed with everybody. It's for a crazy, rough time. Everybody's really pulling together, and parents too. I've seen so many things with people setting up their dining rooms as classrooms, and it's pretty amazing. And to, like Diana said, countless webinars, articles, about everything from COVID to social emotional learning and all the things that we're all extremely concerned about. And of course, the Keenans. Start those Keenan trainings and get them done. But anyway, it's been a pretty amazing time, really. And it's, we're all in it together. So at least we're not alone.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to report on is Mary and I, as well as Becky, had a board chat this morning, and this was our biggest one yet. So thank you all the families that took time out of their day, and we had a health professional. So it was about school starting and about the questions and nerves and things like that. So it was a great time. And again, I just want to acknowledge that when we set this out, it was about the community being able to talk to the board members. We aren't a quorum, and it's a more intimate setting. And thank goodness Becky's there, because and I know that's an hour out of her day that's very valuable. And I just want to thank you again, Becky, here as well as this morning, that in big school districts, or maybe even in UConn, I don't know how their superintendent is accessible to the public, but you really give out your phone number, like literally. And that's not always an option. And I just want to make sure families know that that is a big deal, and that we are lucky to have you provide that opportunity for families to get directly to you, and the care and professionalism you provide to our district. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a good morning. I have to say that.
It was.
I just want to chime in really quickly that I was really pleased with. We had 7 people outside of us, and great questions were asked. Good comments were made. It was a good conversation. Mm-hmm. So I was very pleased with the morning, and I was glad that we did it.
And I do want, and I said this morning, but if you guys will remind me, it really would have been great to record that, because there were some things asked, and your responses, Becky, I know would have eliminated or helped with some nerves, with parent nerves, about the describing of the internet, which we'll probably talk about tonight too. But anyway, after, about halfway through, I'm like, oh, we should be recording this, but things to think about for the future. So I checked in at the high school, and a couple of things that I'd already seen publicly advertised is the Chromebook and textbook pickup is happening from 9 to 1. I took my son today. Very well-oiled machine. He was in and out, even though there was lots of, you could see people coming and going. He was in and out of there very quickly. And then this weekend, any 9th graders will get a call from their link leader for the orientation that's happening next week. So if you have an incoming freshman into the high school, they will get a mentor that will be calling them this weekend. And then Mr. Triplett specifically wanted me to share that he wants to applaud the teachers for working on their tech over the summer and the last few days. And specifically, a huge shout out to Mrs. Farrell, Mrs. Titchenen, and Mrs. Tunzi for the amazing training and support that they're providing to the staff. So he wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that. And I too started my Keenan, and with us doing the board policy this month, it made me really think that just a reminder that are important. And I know that they are not people's favorite thing to do, but it is a good reminder that sometimes we think things are common sense, but it really will help accidents. And we just don't want some things to happen in our district. We want to be the poster child for something. So please get those done as soon as you can. Okay. So I think that's everybody, right? Okay. All right. So we'll move on to superintendent's report.
Okay, so in your packet, you have the first part of the report is the COVID-19 back to school protocols and documents. So these are on our website, so anybody can access these if they would like to look at them. The first one is the FBUSD on-campus student-parent agreement. So that's the agreement that we are going to be asking our parents to complete so that they understand what our protocols are. We are going to be distributing this agreement to students who will be accessing our internet rooms. And so let me talk about that a little bit. Last week, I believe on July 31st, we sent out a parent letter right after the board meeting to everyone. We actually mailed them home as well. And if you want to know what that meant for us in the district office, it meant everyone from me to Wendy to Anna. We were all paper folding machines. And the whole district office folded and stuffed 1,800 envelopes so that we could get the letters out that day. And typically what would happen is those would go out into the sites, but we didn't have sites here. So we got those letters were mailed home, and they were also emailed home. And then we asked parents that if you had internet connectivity issues to return that letter by August 7th. We've had the parents of 54 children, and I think we might even be up to 60 now, huh, Anna? About the parents of 60 children return that. And so between Anna and I, we have called every single parent, and I think I've spoken to almost all of them with the exception of one or two to try and find solutions on how to help them ascertain good quality internet for the opening of school. So for some folks who really don't have any options, we are opening internet rooms on our campuses. There will be 4 rooms, and right now we are going to be staffing those rooms with our Kudos staff. So I'm glad Beth Pine is on. She'll give a little bit more of a report later. So the families who will be participating in with that, we are going to ask them to sign this on-campus agreement. And it pretty much says, you can read it. Are there questions about the agreement? Yes, Diana.
So is this something that you prepared on your own, or did you have to speak with legal about the formality of it? Because I think, if I remember right, education is compulsory and you can't have them release you from liability, but you can tell them how you want them to act on campus.
Yes.
Right?
So it started out with our draft, and it used to have more pictures. And then Nancy got a hold of it. Nancy Klein's our attorney, and she worked with me to make sure that it was appropriate. So the yellow part where it says "see attached," it refers to the California Department of Public Health guidance, which is also in this packet, and that will be connected to this on our website. So we'll put those out there. But basically it says that we need your contact information, moms and dads, and it needs to be current. This is something that's been difficult at our sites. In non-COVID years, we usually can find someone. If the kids are old enough, we can say, find your mom and dad, call a mom or dad or parent. This really stresses that it's super important that we have it. We are asking parents to screen before the kiddos come to our classrooms. If they exhibit any COVID-19 symptoms, any cold or flu-like symptoms, keep them home. If they come in with any symptoms, even like a sniffle, and they say it's an allergy, we can't have them there because we can't prove that it's an allergy. So it's also saying that if they have any symptoms, they're not going to be able to be in the room that day. If they do come into the room and they have symptoms, we're going to ask the parents to take them home. If they get symptoms after the parents have dropped them off, we're going to be calling parents and we're asking them to pick them up within 30 minutes. It lists out the symptoms. Let's see, what else does it say? Students will need to wear a mask the entire time, covering their nose and mouth. I did have someone call and say, well, can I do a face shield? You could do a face shield if there is like a bandana or something underneath the shield that can get tucked into the shirt. So the mom said, no problem, I will do that. So that was great, thank you. The safety protocols as recommended by CDC, that's what's in that See attached document. And then there's a 10-minute window. So really we don't want students there any earlier than 8:30 because school starts at 9. So for the internet rooms, we're actually giving folks a half-hour window before 9 o'clock because school does start at 9. And then they need to be picked up promptly. The internet rooms are going to be closing at 1:30 because the high school day ends at 1:30. And then they need to report to their room promptly on arrival. So LaManda Walker is calling families from the district office, and she's calling the families who have requested this, and she's letting them know their room assignment. And then we're getting all the documents ready for our families. I'm meeting with the Kudos staff on Monday to make sure that we are ready to go. We have protocols in place. We will be exercising those protocols. The Spanish document is there. The next page in the packet is the attendance policy, and that's really for the distance learning. We talked about this a little today at the board chat, but this really is the global attendance policy for Fort Bragg Unified. Each site has their own specific plans so that it delineates the who. What are the first levels? Basically, what we have is that we have an engaged and a not engaged. And please know that when we move into distance learning, the big component here is communication. No one in our district is looking to stick it to anybody. No one in our district is looking to get someone. We recognize that this is a 100% new atmosphere and environment, and we want to work with our families. So if moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, family members out there, parents, if you have an issue with your internet one day and it literally just goes out, just call us. Call us and say, hey, you know what? We've tried. It's not working today. The issue that we are going to have as a school system is when we have no communication from families and kids. If you literally fall off the grid and we can't find you, that's when we have to come looking for you. If there's an issue and your child can't log in for that day for whatever reason, give the teacher a call, shoot the teacher an email or the principal, communicate with us, and I promise we will find a solution to every barrier we face. It's not about trying to make people internet shame or you didn't log in. We just have to communicate. So the daily attendance policy just discusses what we are going to do. And basically we are taking a firmer, stronger line than what the state provides. The state says that if a child is absent, meaning absent, no communication for 3 days in any given week, that we have to have an attendance plan to go out and find them. What we are saying in our attendance plan is that if we have no communication for 2 days in the same week, and it could be a Tuesday and a Friday, it doesn't have to be 2 days in a row. But once you hit that second day of a no-show, then we have to go out and make a plan to improve that attendance for the following week. So this just takes you through the protocols, and it goes back to looking at what we do normally. If your child is not going to log in because you've decided that whatever reason they're not feeling well, or you as a family, you're going somewhere, call the school. Call the school, communicate with the teachers and say they're not logging in today. They will be doing their work, but give us the opportunity to work with you, and then you won't see us hounding you. So it talks about how to excuse an absence, basically call the school. Please make sure that your current contact information is on your emergency card. What I found interesting, and I'm sharing this with the administrators, is I tried calling a whole lot of families this week because I wanted to talk to them personally about the internet rooms, independent study, what their options were. And what's interesting is that the district office phone number, the 2850 number, comes up on my phone as potential spam, but that's usually when the all call happens. And so as I was calling families, the majority of them said, oh, I didn't pick up because I thought it was just a district all call. So what I need to reiterate to everybody out there is that it is going to be hugely important for you to pick up the call. And if it's a recording, then know it's going to come in your email. And if you want to hang up, that's fine. But I'm going to ask everyone to really just pick up the phone when you see the district calling and just endure the 30 seconds of the message if that's the case. But I found it incredibly difficult to try and call so many parents because, we giggled and laughed about it. Oh, I thought you were the all call. But we have to have a way to be able to get in contact with our families. So we talk about the 3 different tiers in this attendance plan of what happens when a student is marked as distance learning not engaged, and then how we are going to go about trying to get in contact with that kid, with the kiddo and the family. And the reason behind this is because the state has found that we've had a lot of kids fall off the radar, and there is a huge worry about students' mental health, about child abuse, neglect, and so we want to have eyes on the kids. And so that's why it's really strict. And that's why we are going to turn into stalkers, for lack of a better word. If we get to those 2 days where we have no contact, we're going to look for you. And it's basically just to make sure everybody's okay. What can we do to support you? If it's 2 days, 2 weeks in a row, then we're really going to look for you. And it may be that we need to work with our counseling team to see what kind of supports we can help with. It might be that someone from the school calls the kiddo at 8:55 and says, okay, 5 minutes till school starts. Are you logging in? And sometimes families, you may need just a little extra help. Our kiddos aren't always really nice to us as parents, but they're usually good to other people. So our idea, our hope behind the 3 tiers is that we have a way to help support families. That's what this is about. And then if we get to a point where you're at tier 3, then we have to have an attendance improvement plan. And then we list all the phone numbers there for questions. And then in the Spanish version, there was a typo and I fixed it. And I know that Anna already has the fixed version, but under questions for preguntas, there should be an upside down question mark. Just want to tell my Spanish teacher out there, I remembered that. And then the next paper is the protocols. I've sent this to all of our district staff on multiple occasions. And if you follow the links, you could go to the CDC website and see what the symptoms are for COVID-19. And it tells you the scenarios of how we respond. If a student or staff member exhibits COVID-19 symptoms, they answer yes to the health screening question, they go home. They don't stay at school if they're at school. The student or staff, they're sent home. And then someone asked me today, well, do we contact our administrator? They contact the administrator if they are staying home from work and not reporting to work. So I don't want people to feel that if they had, they didn't get tested right away, that they have to immediately tell us every symptom that they have. That's not required by the California Department of Public Health. If you are on campus and we are in our hybrid model and you are going home, then you would express that to your administrator, and we would know that because the kids would check out through the front office. But this document gives you all 4 scenarios, what we do and how we respond. And then the administrators have this protocol page with the links to the letters that we would send. And I believe I gave you a copy of that in the July board meeting with the links to the letters so you could look at those letters. We have the Spanish version of that. And then we have the COVID industry guidance for the school-based programs. Questions?
So I have a question and a comment. I'll do the comment first. The digital divide that was put on by the CDE, Jim Wood is our assembly and he has been fighting, I guess, for a lot of years just to put a little conduit and fiber optic in for us rural folks. So he was there on our behalf as a rural district saying we just need, because I think that's probably the issue with the 60 families that may not have connectivity, is that it's just not even if we got them a hotspot, it's not going to be viable because they have no cell coverage at all. So I wanted to give a shout out for them fighting for us rural districts. And then lots on social media concerned about engagement. Is that with cameras on and off? And why is that? What are the privacy issues? How will the school address that? Do they just contact their teacher and try to figure out a solution?
So one of the things that we are asked to do as educators is to have eyes on the kids, which is why we're asking for the cameras to be on. What I would suggest to families is to find a space where your kiddos can have some privacy, put up a sheet as a backdrop if you don't want things seen, find a place where they can sit with their Chromebook to have a quiet spot so that they can access their teachers. If as long as the teacher can see the kiddo for a little bit, and if they want to they need to work with their teachers before I say too much, because as a teacher, I would want to see that my kiddos are on the screen. To be able to see your face and see you nod and see you acknowledge, that gives me the idea as an instructor who's getting at least some of what I'm selling. And so that face-to-face interaction contact is hugely important. The reason for that is because our state has a global worry that kids are not okay. And so, yes, there are privacy issues. If there is something that parents feel completely compelled about or strongly, then I would just encourage you, call your teacher, explain where you're coming from. No one is going to sit there and make this more difficult than it needs to be. What we're more concerned about is giving kids the opportunities to see each other. They're social beings. That's where this is coming from. If there's someone who feels so incredibly strongly that I do not want that camera on, this is an invasion of my privacy, talk to your teacher. We're not going to sit there and try and convince you, but we do want you to know that there is a reason behind it. Other questions about these documents? Okay, moving right along, the professional development report. I thought, did I not give that to you, Anna? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I think you did. So it looks like the wrong version is uploaded. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Here, I've got it on my computer. Can I share my screen?
Yep.
Yay. So the professional development report. Could you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? Yay. Okay, fabulous. So I'll make it a little bit bigger. I don't know about your eyes, but my eyes are losing it these days. So restorative practices and equity training. We have worked with Calvin Oliver. We had a training today. I'm hoping people felt that was good and valuable. So we have him for a total of 4 sessions. He met with the administrators to kind of lay the groundwork with us and the counselors. He did an all-district training today for 2 hours. He will return on the 20th to meet with Redwood and Dana Gray to talk about respect agreements, and then on the 26th for grade 6 through 12 to talk about respect agreements. iReady is the program that we have purchased. Those trainings have begun. iReady was purchased for Redwood, Dana Gray, FBMS, and Alternative Ed, English and Language Arts Intervention, Remediation, Enrichment. It is an online program, and it provides a screener so that we can figure out where kids are in their learning and track that data. So we're excited about the iReady program. Math Solutions will be starting their trainings this week. We have them for a total of 24 hours, and we are taking those 24 hours in 2-hour chunks. We have dedicated this training to Redwood, Dana Gray, and to Fort Bragg Middle School. So they're doing a 2-hour training over these 3 days. And I think most of them have that training tomorrow. So 2 hours in August, then they'll have 2 hours at a staff, 90 minutes, in a staff meeting in September, 90 minutes in October, and 90 minutes in November, so that we can continue with looking at asynchronous and synchronous math lessons. They're going to be looking primarily at math talks. And what I mean by math talks, it's like a mathematical Socratic seminar. So I'm excited about that. I met with the trainers. They're really wonderful. The idea behind the Math Solutions was to help provide guidance for our teachers in the area of number sense. We've been looking at this for the last couple of years, but we wanted to keep this training because it was specifically going to look at synchronous and asynchronous learning in the scope of mathematics. The California Principal Support Network, our principals have been participating in this for the last 2 years. This is year 3. So Mr. Kale, Mr. Triplett, and Ms. Vieira would like to continue it. So we are doing that. MTSS, it's ongoing with MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support. We will be continuing with this. Dana Gray and the middle school. This is the year 2 of their grant. They each received $25,000. So they will continue on with that. We as a district will continue with MTSS and try and integrate that more as we're working with restorative practices, PBIS. It's all part of an intertwined web. It all works together. Big picture learning is for our alternative schools. Noyo High School was targeted for it as a CSI school because of their suspension rate, and that's comprehensive support and improvement. And someone will say, well, why is that? When you only have 20 students on the books and 2 get suspended, then your suspension rate looks horrible. So Noyo is addressing that. But part of that, they are receiving professional development dollars, and we're using some of that for big picture learning. And it's actually pretty exciting to hear what's happening with that. So it is a project-based project-based program where students go out into the community, get internships, and really guide their learning based on a career path that they are placing themselves on. And they work with a mentor. The teachers are designing curriculum and lessons to go with those specific career pathways. So it's incredibly exciting to see how Alt Ed is becoming a big picture school. So that PD will be ongoing for them. The social studies department at the middle school just adopted new textbooks. Thank you for that, board. You approved that, I want to say, in April or May. So they are going to have professional development on their textbooks. PBIS continues to be ongoing. That's part of the three-legged stool with restorative practices and MTSS. Parent Square, people are going to start hearing this. Parent Square is our new communication system. Parents can actually get the Parent Square app. It's free. And you can talk back and forth with your teachers via text. The teachers are getting trained on that this week. It's pretty great, I have to tell you. I'm excited about it. I think it's a good transition for us. And I think it will allow us to do a little bit more than the Aries communication. This is replacing Aries communication. So no one freak out, parents, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, anybody who receives a communication from us. You're still going to get it. You don't have to do anything. Sorry. Technology PD, the smart TVs are in the classroom. That professional development has begun. Every site gets free professional development with the company. So that started. That's pretty exciting. People are getting really incredibly excited about this smart board. And I have to tell you, the silver lining with COVID is that we received these COVID dollars so we could do things like this. So good stuff. And then Google, we've had Google professional development. And again, I really want to thank Kelly Farrell. She created 36 hours worth of professional development for anybody in the district who wants to participate in it, and you can earn DCEC credits. DCEC is our district continuing education credit, and it's good stuff. I've completed module 1. I'm happy to say there are 6 modules. Each module takes about 6 hours. It's incredibly comprehensive. But even just doing the first one, I felt as if, okay, we can do this. We can totally do this. So that is in a nutshell where we are for the year. I'm sure more things will get added on because they always do. But that's the professional development in a nutshell. Questions? You're trying to unmute Diana, Control D. Now she's frozen. Are you there, Diana? Okay, you're muted. Okay. Did you have a question, Diana?
There we go.
I do. I just, sorry about that. It was me. It wasn't my internet connectivity. Parent Square, will that be more of an interface that the teacher would log on their computer so that they'd have weekends off? It's not like it's going to be chiming through a phone and interrupting their weekend. They'll only be able to view the messaging on their laptop, or does it go to their phone where it's more like
it'll go to their phone if they download the app, but it's through their Aries portal.
Okay, so they can.
And I haven't completed all the training with Parent Square yet, so Anna, feel free to chime in. She knows a lot more than I do.
I unfortunately don't know enough either, and we're still working on familiarizing ourselves with it. So sorry, can't add much more.
Well,
my understanding is that they download the app and then they can use their phone, but they have to use the app if they want to use their phone. But the idea behind Parent Squared is that teachers can create small groups. They can do more things through Parent Squared. Parents can communicate back and forth with them without giving up their private phone number. And then it's kind of like a Remind 101 where you could talk back and forth without that exchange of of private information. So,
And if it's an app and they're using it on their phone, they'll be able to use their phone, if nothing else, to be able to create a block on times of when that can come through. So they can choose to mute the app as just in itself. So that should be fine, I think.
Right. Give them a break.
I just want to commend the length of list that we have, even under COVID and virtual opportunity. I mean, that's a 2-page list under current circumstances is quite impressive. So thank you for all the people that had something to do with that. That's great.
Other questions? Okay, are we okay with me moving right along? Okay, the next one is staff evaluations. You have in your packet where we are with evaluations. There were some that haven't been done only because they weren't due until August or September, so we're still waiting on some of those. And then we had a few people, it got a little tricky to do them at the end because COVID happened. We couldn't get people back on campus. But for the most part, the evaluations we are in a much better spot than we were a year ago. Questions on that? Okay, and then the student suspension report. This is what you get every year. Basically, what you have is the suspensions based on it only goes until March. So we do see a decline because we stopped. Questions on that?
It still looks like it's less than half. So, and it was March is a little bit further than half. So that's a good upward or downward trend, I guess.
Well, and we had our restorative practices training today. It was really just laying the foundation of what restorative practices is. It didn't really tell us how we're going to do it yet. It's just laying the foundation of getting people mentally ready. Okay, this is why we do it. So I'm looking forward to this year for us to be able to have the conversations about building relationships and laying the foundation so that we can make an impact on students. So we'll get better every year. Next is the independent study report. It tells you how many short-term, how many full-time. This is what you get every year. There's nothing new or fancy about this one. Questions on that?
So
Yes.
we only have 4 full-time ISP students.
They're at the high school.
Yeah. Okay.
What typically happens is people at the kiddos at the high school, when they go on independent study, they realize it is a beast. It is not for the faint of heart because you are getting all of your work in 1 week and you meet with the teacher for an hour and then you go home and you work on it independently and you come back and you bring it all. And then if you aren't keeping up with your work, then you're placed on probation. And if you are on probation for a few more, I think I want to say 2 or 3 weeks, then you could potentially be removed from independent study because it's not working. Independent study is not easy. So we don't have as many folks on it.
And so does this show us how many requested and how many completed it to know how much work was behind the scene? Because I know sometimes
so the 179 short-term contracts, we did not dig that deeply. Typically, the short-term contracts, to be honest with you, if they go out, we get something back. And so we didn't have staff on campus, and to me, that wasn't information that was worth hounding people for at this point. If you want me to get it, I can bring it to the next meeting.
I just want to acknowledge, because I know how much work it is on top of their normal schedule. And then when it comes back partially done, which I totally understand that as well from families, but it's a lot of work to do 179 and have them come back bleakly.
The next report is the online registration, and And this is a big deal for our community. It was 100% online. It was online before, but last year, what happened was we brought everybody into Dana Gray, and you brought in your paper to show that you did it. And this year we couldn't do that. So it was 100% online. And then the families who didn't register in time, we were able to work with them and get our secretaries at the sites to call families. And I think we had about 300 families. Is that about right, Anna? 300 families, which for 1,800 kids, 300 families is about less than 20%. And I know moms and dads were irritated because you don't have registration on the forefront of your mind at the end of July. You have job and taking care of your kids. But I really want to thank the secretaries for contacting our families, and I want to thank the families for your patience with us as well, because we know that it's not a seamless process. But the good news is everybody who now has an Aries account, it makes registration so much easier for next year. And just so people know, we all register our kids in the district office first, not because we want to be the first one. It's because we're trying to look for all the hiccups that we could potentially find. We try and do it with our kids first before we open it up. So I just want to thank Sarah Bushnell and Anna. They really are the two people who go after this. And then the rest of us in the district office, our kids become the guinea pigs to make sure that there are no hiccups. So online registration for the most part, I think went well. Question? Yes, Diana.
Do we know if it was a connectivity and or just not on the calendar for these 300 kids, or did people move or choose another educational option?
Some of them just forgot, to be quite honest with you. Some have chosen a different educational option. We've discovered that there are some families who have enrolled in different schools, some who moved. So it was kind of all over the map. I would say the greater majority, though, of those 300 either forgot or had a connectivity issue and they needed some help with it, or they didn't have the information they needed to create an Aries account.
And I think the fear factor for some came into play as well, because once we helped them through it, they said, oh, that was so easy. That's out there. And don't forget to thank Irma.
Irma Medina, goodness. She translated a whole bunch. What a rock star. And then also our IT team. You know, I always forget to thank the IT team. And the reality is the IT team is the one who keeps it all together so all this can happen. So they have been working tirelessly and overtime. So questions on online registration? Yes.
I have a quick question. How many kindergartners did we end up with to date?
I want to say right now we have about 106.
Okay.
If it was a normal year, I would be panicked right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much lower number, but it's not a normal year. So,
right. Okay. Thanks.
I will check in the morning. Okay, questions about that? Okay, next we have Beth Pine with Kudos. Hi, Beth, are you there?
I am unmuting. Yes, I'm here. Hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I have had some internet instability issues, but it seems to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and present, screen share the PowerPoint that I have developed. I attended an ASAP. It's a group that we had a training on facilitation methods, and part of my projects and goals came about with this PowerPoint presentation about expanded day learning and how expanded day learning ties into what is called the California Standards for Expanded Learning. So I'm going to go ahead and try to present. And I know Anna also has it in case it doesn't show up for you. And then it's also in your board packet. and hopefully you can see it and I can talk to you. Can somebody give me a yes, it's working?
Yes, it's working, Beth. You're good. We see it. Great.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with just showing you kind of the whole tree of our staff and our partners. So starting down with the site coordinators at the different sites, and then moving on up to the County Office of Education. Kate Vino is the county site coordinator, and then we have Becky oversees the program. Monique and Carly are both now co-directing of what we call our community-based organization, which is the Recreation District. And so we partner with the Rec District, and all of the Kudos employees are hired by the Rec District, our community-based organization. And then we have a region, which includes Mendocino County, Lake County, Del Norte County, and Sonoma County. And that's our region. I may have left one off. I'm not sure. Bessie Glossinger heads that up. And then she also is supported by Malia Meyer, who also does a STEAM hub, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And then on over to our CDE folks. On yours, it says that Andrea Shimati is our fiscal analyst. That just changed. Now we have Joe Purcell, who's the fiscal analyst at California Department of Education, and Chris Brazil, who's our program analyst. And they've been really great through this whole thing of trying to give us most current and up-to-date what we should be doing and how we should be reporting from our programs. So that's been a challenge for everybody, and they've been doing the best they can. They don't always have the answers either. So moving on, who does Kudos serve? And we serve at Redwood and Dana Gray up to 100 kids, in the middle school up to 50 students, and that it ends up being more than a quarter of the student population that we serve every year. Homeless and foster, by the grant requirements, receive the highest priority, and then by our own district's requirements, we then put priority on the academic and social emotional need, and we do that through the teachers' referrals. Either the teachers' referrals when we do registration, or ongoing teachers' referrals as we pull in new students or take students off the waiting list. If you have any questions as I'm moving along, feel free to just holler at me, but I'll also ask for questions at the end of the presentation. I'm going to not just read these slides to you. I'm going to kind of move through them a little more quickly so I don't take up too much time. The guiding principles of expanded learning and what we report to our consortium about the quality of our program. This is our Bible right here, the quality standards for expanded learning. This is something that we do every year. We do continuous quality improvement every year as part of the grant. Our Kudos staff every year get together. Usually the whole district staff get together, and we pick two of these to really focus on for the year. And what we try to work with mostly is what they call the point of service quality standards, 1 through 6. And so what we do is we pick which two are we going to really focus on. And then our program covers all of these, but we focus on 2 every year as our quality improvement and as part of our self-evaluation of our program. I will refer back to those standards, and I also will refer to some of the current the studies that have come out about social, emotional, and academic development and the whole child. So I'll first talk about the Aspen Institute's report, and this is it, A Nation at Hope. And the first vision, the first priority for A Nation at Hope set a clear vision that broadens the definition of student success to prioritize the whole child. And we've been hearing a lot of research about the whole child, and the whole child needs to be part of the academic development in order for success. This comes from the SOLD practice principles, and this is the wheel of the optimized whole child development. And these around the wheel are the 5 non-negotiables for the whole child design. I'll refer back to that wheel quite a bit throughout the presentation. First of all, now referring back to the expanded learning standards. Number 9 in the expanded learning standards is collaborative partnerships. Also from the wheel I just showed you, the 5 non-negotiables. From the wheel is integrated supports. And so moving on to the Aspen document, align resources and leverage partners in the community to address the whole child. So these are the resources and the partners that we are aligned with in the after-school program. Of course, we have our CBO, MCRPD, and the school district. We also have these other ones I show on the other side, and you can look at those. But obviously, the biggest funding source being the ACES grant. And then referring back to the standards, safe and supportive environment, and referring back to the 5 non-negotiables wheel, positive developmental relationships, and an environment filled with safety and belonging. And then from the Aspen report, transform learning settings so that they are safe and supportive, and change instruction to teach students social and emotional skills. So this is how it is included in the Kudos for Kids program. For several years now, if you were to ask the Kudos staff what their number 1 responsibility would be, they will all answer that their responsibility is to develop positive relationships with the students. And then there's a couple of quotes that you can read on your own. So learning is collaborative, promotes growth, and resolves differences and conflicts. These are the way that this statement is addressed. Students are encouraged to solve problems rather than adults directing them. Social emotional learning is always our top priority. Students work in groups, problem solve, peer tutor, develop new interests and skills. Kudos for Kids staff are PBIS trained. They hold consistent the PBIS agreements, and Kudos staff are held to high standards, receive training, and are evaluated. From the expanded learning standards, the California standards, active and engaged learning and skill building, and back to the wheel of the 5 non-negotiables, rich instructional experience, and intentional development of critical skills and mindsets. The Kudos for Kids program support the LCAP goals of FUSD, and they provide intervention to support the goals. And the way that Kudos does this, the site coordinator communicates frequently with administration and school faculty to identify and address the students with the highest need. The staff uses this information to develop activities and individual learning styles. Some of these examples that you'll see in the Kudos program, guided reading, Kids Lit, handwriting practice, practicing math skills, like learning to tell time, addition, and multiplication games. And the Kudos for Kids provides project-based learning that is hands-on and active. Our lesson plans are prepared and submitted by experienced instructors. We've just started using a new lesson plan format that was given to us by the county and specifically by Malia, that's called the 5 E's. And it's a lesson plan that helps us to plan for that collaborative learning and exploration. And these are some of the enrichment activities that we've been doing with the kids. A lot of these were activities that we did at the end of the year through distant learning. Then we're back to the California standards, number 6, diversity, access, and equity. Something that's been on the forefront of everybody's mind lately. And this is how Kudos for Kids cultivates access and equity. And there's another little quote there that racism and equity are products of design. They can be redesigned. The Kudos for Kids staff cultivates access, equity, social emotional growth, and resilience by building self-awareness, confidence, breaking down racial bias, and through emotional social learning activities like mindfulness, restorative justice, and adult modeling. And this is kind of a breakdown of our population diversity. The population of FUSD, I hope I'm correct on this, it used to be and hopefully still is around 33%. The Kudos for Kids enrollment this last year was 50% of ESL Hispanic students. The majority of, and I should say Latinx, which is the more appropriate term now, the majority of Kudos for Kids participants receive some intervention services during the regular school day based on academic, language development, or social emotional need. So that could be, they could have an IEP, they could be getting special services for a certain area, they could be an EL kid, they could be in the C Academy. We generally have students from all walks. And so far, every year, we've had at least 2 bilingual staff on our Kudos staff during the program. So the last slide I want to present to you, why should the Kudos for Kids be included in the Fort Bragg Unified School District's LCAP plan? I've spoke to this a few times, and I feel real passionately about being in the LCAP plan, even though I'm aware that the funding comes, just solely from the grant. We still are an integral part of the plan because we address and meet the LCAP goals, and we're an equitable practice that holds the communities, and we see and become partners with our communities and with our families, and we build relationships with the families every single day. After school is where school families and community meet. And with that, I'll stop sharing, and
Are there questions for Beth?
Yeah, I had to get back. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just trying to fill in for you.
So I know you give so much academic support, but how did that roll out? Because you are also childcare for some families. So what did that look like when you were doing distant learning? Did you lose children because, they probably didn't need the childcare part of it, and the academics was extra because they had to, be home?
Yeah, and what we did at Dana Gray last year and at the middle school, because we were the first ones with everybody had a Chromebook, is that we started immediately learning how to use the Google Classrooms and how to use Meets and plan activities and that kind of thing. And So it was really, but we also posted things in the classroom. So we tried to continue to do academics by posting things that the kids could do. But we found out that, that we needed a different way of doing it because the kids were tired of doing just academics. So we needed to start working on some enrichment stuff with academics. And I know Becky watched a video of me teaching the kids how to do oatmeal raisin cookies. And, part of it was teaching them how to use measuring cups and how to calculate fractions through measuring and that kind of thing. So we'll be doing a lot more of that this year. And so we did get most of our kids to accept the invite into our Google Classrooms. And so there were very few that didn't. And so that meant that we were potentially serving most of the kids. But we didn't get a lot of kids showing up to our meets, probably because we were having our meets so much later than they were getting done with their school day. So we're going to try to start earlier as long as school is getting over at 1:30. We're going to try and start the Kudos program. We also don't have the constraints that we had in the past. There was a lot of things that were waived by CDE. And one of them was the time frames, which is why we can be in the classrooms, the internet classrooms during the day. And because we wouldn't normally be able to run in conjunction with the school day. And then we can start earlier on our learning.
Thank you.
So the Kudos program will be staffing the internet rooms beginning August 19th. And so our directors are going to work with the staff to make sure that the parts of the grant that we do need to fulfill, like the enrichment and the physical activity, that will all be met. Questions? Beth, thank you so much. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, but thank you very much for having me and listening to my presentation. And we're all really excited about getting Kudos going this year, and we hope we'll get a great response.
Great.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're moving on to our facilities report from Barry.
Hi, good evening, everybody. We've been busy. It's a condensed report. However, I'd like to share that between maintenance, custodial, grounds, we completed 108 work orders over the summer, to include finishing construction of the nutrition services dry good buildings at the high school. That was a project that was started by the high school construction class, but obviously after March 18th, they didn't work on it anymore. We converted the 30-wing book room at Redwood into a reboot room. Carpet, paint, new drywall, you put a window in the door. It really turned out nice. It was nice to be able to repurpose that room. Built a fence to help enclose one of the courtyards at Redwood. Multiple irrigation leaks at Redwood Middle School were repaired. Leaky boilers at Redwood Middle School were all repaired. Got all the boilers serviced at every site, which is a pretty big undertaking. All the sites cleaned like they normally would be for summer. And luckily we were able to get into the cafeterias at Dana Gray and Redwood when the food service took that, I think it was a 2-week break. We weren't able to do any work in there because that's where all the food was being staged, but they got in there and they were able to get it done. We got a lot of painting done that we haven't been able to do in a long time, especially at Redwood. The classroom cabinets were all painted. The flagpole at the middle school, however, you might notice it's shorter now because the bottom 2 feet was completely rotten. So that's kind of the thing with painting. When you start scraping and sanding, you don't know what you're going to find. So we found good solid wood 2 feet above it's a little bit shorter. Transportation staff worked with the nutrition service staff all summer long, distributing food. And we're going to be doing that as soon as school starts again. All our buses are inspected and ready to go. We're looking forward to when kids get to come back, because we will be transporting some kids. I can't say enough about the maintenance, custodial, grounds, and transportation staff. They've been the most patient, flexible, amazing group of people to work with. I mean, they all get it. They all know how difficult this is for everybody. You know, a lot of them have kids, a lot of them don't have kids, but anything that they would be asked to do, they do it with a smile on their face. So I'm lucky to have such an amazing crew of people to work with. But they're tired. I can tell you that they're tired, and it's really only beginning for us. So that's really all I have. Any questions?
How's the new field equipment? Did you get to utilize that?
Oh, the new field equipment is amazing. They're using it quite a bit. Yeah. In fact, they aerated, and it hadn't been done in probably 12 years. They were able to aerate middle school, and it's noticeable. Even now, we're not irrigating middle school as often as we would during winter months. However, the aeration made a noticeable difference. It's, we're in the middle of August and it's still pretty green. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, the grounds guys, they never stop moving. So,
it's a lot of acreage.
It is.
Yeah. Thank you to your team.
And thank you just to all of them, because they're not in positions, and what I mean positions, I mean in work positions where they can say, I'm going remote. It doesn't work that way. So our grounds maintenance custodial team, they have been boots on the ground from the beginning, and it's noticeable. So many of the things that we couldn't normally do, we were able to get done this year. And thank you, Barry, for guiding them and leading them and encouraging them and keeping them going, because sometimes it can be hard to be the people with the boots on the ground watching everybody else working remotely. So we appreciate their hard work, and we appreciate all they do for our district and how far we've been able to get in these summer months. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Barry? Barry, you are more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting, because this is good stuff. Good stuff.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Well, you have a good night. Go be with your family.
Thank you.
Kathy, if I may, please, I forgot to mention a new teacher. Yesenia Vasquez is new to the high school. She's our new art teacher. And Yeni, as she's most fondly noted, is she was a long-term sub last year. So that's why we just kind of, we think of Yeni on staff. We don't think of her as new. But Yeni is coming to us full-time ranks, coming into the art department at Fort Bragg High School as our new art teacher. So I just want to do a shout out and an acclamation for her, because she's pretty fantastic. We're incredibly lucky to have her. So Yeni, I apologize that we missed you on the new staff. I don't think of you as new staff. That was my blunder, so I apologize, but welcome aboard.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we are moving on to the bond sale. So that's Wendy.
Unmute. Okay. In your packet is a brief little handout that ISOM advisors prepared for us. It's a little synopsis of the whole project. We did have our bond rating call, and we were able to maintain an A rating even in this difficult time. They said that if it had not been with the things that are going on in the economy, that we probably would have been graded up, but we were able to maintain our A rating. We sold 12 million of the bonds that were authorized, and the actual final paperwork on that will happen on the 26th, but all of the underlying things have been done. The upside is the timing was impeccable. If you look at the chart on the interest rates, they were at historic lows when we were on the pricing call, they said, you must be an oracle. You picked absolutely the best time to do this. You can see that our true interest cost is 2.9%, and the debt repayment ratio is at 1.6, where we're allowed to have a 4.4 to 1 ratio. And to put that in a little perspective, if you've ever looked at your total mortgage payments over the life of the mortgage and figured out how many times you're paying for your house, 1.6 is pretty good. So we were really thrilled with that. I think the estimates prior to that were slightly higher, so 1.7 something. So to come in at 1.6 to 1 was really a nice surprise. So that is finished. Like I said, there's just a little bit of final paperwork to be done, and the actual digital physical transfer of the bonds to where they are going to end up. So now we can start spending it.
Okay. Any questions for Wendy? And Anna, I know you will tell me if anybody writes in, but we're so far so good. Quiet in the public. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to talk more about facilities later on, so we'll come back to Wendy. All right. Do we have anybody from CSEA or FBDTA? Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the consent items. These are routine and non-controversial. So is there anything that a board member had questions on or would like to pull? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, so we approve these as a whole. Diana, would you mind reading them?
Sure. 9.1 are warrants dated August 5th, 2020. 9.2 is minutes for the regular board meeting, June 25, 2020. 9.3 is personnel action report. 9.4 is the Williams quarterly reporting. And 9.5 is the administration work calendars.
Okay. If there are no questions or concerns, I'll call for a motion, please.
All right, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right. So we have 3 action items. Are we good? Do we need a quick break or are we good? Okay. All right. We'll see how long the board policy takes, right? All right. We have 3 action items tonight. So the first one is 10.1, our reopening and return to school plan. So I do have one correspondence to read. So I'm going to read our public statement first. So the following public comment was received by the district using the telecommunication public comment email address. For ease of public participation, it will be read into the record by a district employee or board president. This should not be construed as an endorsement of this comment, excuse me, by the district or as the position of the district. So right now we have 1 letter. Superintendent Walker, President Babcock, and the members of the Fort Bragg Unified School Board. Thank you very much for inviting Dr. Miller to our July 30th school board meeting to address our FBUSD family. With so much COVID information to have to wade through, having this come straight from a local health professional helps put things into perspective. I hope you will continue to invite him to provide updates and recommendations for the schools and families. As our schools are such an important part of our society, I hope you will not only rely on data, but also the full spectrum of benefits to in-school education and why it is best for our children. It would be detrimental to our children to wait until there's a successful vaccination, in quotations. While it is speculated to be only 18 months away from an approved COVID-19 vaccination, it is estimated to take up to 3 years for it to be effective. In an article dated July 23rd, 2020 on the CDC website on the importance of reopening American schools this fall, it stated that the harms attributed to closed schools on the social, emotional, and behavioral health, economic well-being, and academic achievement in children in both short-term and long-term are well known and significant. Further, the lack of in-person educational options disproportionately harm low-income and minority children and those with disabilities. These students are far less likely to have access to private instruction and care and far more likely to rely on key school-supported resources like food programs, special education services, counseling, and other after-school programs to meet basic developmental needs. I urge you to read the article in its entirety and reflect on the information as you move forward with forming policy and procedures for distance learning and returning to school. Thank you for vowing to keep this topic up for discussion on the agenda. It is important to continue to receive feedback from all stakeholders as we navigate through these unprecedented times. Thank you, Nancy Bennett. And did anything else come in, Anna?
Anna meant to unmute and she just hung up. So she's going to be coming back in any second.
I'm back. Sorry about that. There was nothing new.
Okay. So again, we had some great questions this morning at our board chat regarding the opening, not reopening, but just how school is going to look come next Wednesday. But Becky, is there anything you want to share at this time, or?
So one of the things that we're looking at right now is that our public health officer, Dr. Doohan, has to have some type of, it's called the Order of the Health Officer of the County of Mendocino regarding COVID-19 protocol for schools. So the health officer is working with the superintendents and the Board of Supervisors to create that plan for us. And in that, they cite some of the CDPH, California Department of Public Health guidance on what we need to do to bring kids back. One of the things in there that is concerning to me is the testing protocols that we will need to have in place. And right now, the proposal is that 100% of our staff is tested over a 2-month period, which means 25% of our staff is tested every 2 weeks. Now, what that means for us in Fort Bragg Unified, and I'm going to use simple math, let's pretend we have 280 employees. And I think right now we might have about 250. Does that sound about right? And I say 280 because last year I think we started the year off with like 282. Okay, but let's just use 280 because it's a nice, pretty number. Why is it a nice, pretty number? Because it's divisible by 4. So if you take 25% of 280, that means 70 employees need to be tested every 2 weeks. That means that happens at the clinic, at the Mendocino Coast clinics. I talked to Lucretia Renteria today and said, what's our testing capacity for the whole coast, for the North Coast region? And right now it's around 50 a week. So if we pick up 75, and then you figure Mendocino Unified has to do 25% of theirs, and then you've got the Montessori Del Mar, which is not that many, they're a small little school, and Three Rivers, they're a small little school. But if you start adding these up, that limits the amount of testing that we have on the coast. That is going to greatly impact what our testing availability is going to be. We met with Judy Leach from Mendocino Coast District Hospital today, Tabitha Miller, Lucretia Renteria, and both Wendy and I were on that call with them. It's our weekly check-in to see what's happening on the coast and what we can brace ourselves for. Right now, we have 15 people on the coast who are actively battling COVID-19. They are not all in the hospital, but we have 15 active cases right now. That doesn't include the people who've recovered. The people who recovered are not part of the active, so know that. But what I'm concerned about right now in returning is the testing plan of how we're going to be able to test our employees. And then the question becomes, who pays for that? Because that's another part of it. After September, we don't know if that's going to be offered as a free service anymore. So these are things that we have to consider as we're moving forward into our reopening. And I'm not saying I don't want to reopen. Trust me, hear me loud and clear as a mother of a child who needs to be in school. I absolutely want us to reopen and come back. These are things that we have to consider, though, as we get closer to reopening. Right now, we are slated to be on distance learning through October 9th. I'm going to share my screen with you so that people can see. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen with you so we could talk about what the county prepares and shows to the public. So a thumbs up if you could see this. Great, thank you. So this is the dashboard from the county. Yesterday, this was at 478. Today, it's at 513. So our cases are increasing. We are over here. I don't know if you could see my mouse, but there we are, the North Coast. We're at 56. And those are not 56 active people right now. Like I said, it's 15. So please know that people have gotten COVID, people have recovered, but this number continues to grow. And we just need to be able to watch it because we don't want, we need to be able to respond appropriately. Now, I firmly believe that when we're able to bring kiddos back, that we are going to practice good safety protocols so that we keep COVID out of our schools and that our schools don't become a place of transmission. I appreciated having Dr. Miller on last week for our board meeting because he said, he talked about the masking and the hand hygiene and the physical distancing and how those three things partnered together really can keep COVID at bay. I've spoken to other people who've had close contact with folks and have had scares, and they said, you know what, Becky, we came back negative. We're so grateful. And I said, well, it goes back to what Dr. Miller said. Were you 6 feet apart? Did you practice good hand hygiene? Were you masked? Those things make a difference. So for right now, when we talk about, and I'll stop sharing my screen, when we talk about returning to school, these are things that we are going to have to truly consider. That is something that the public health officer is going to ensure that we have in place. So we need to work with our community partners to make sure that the testing is readily available. And right now, there's a big hiccup in our state about testing. And I don't know if the priorities are appropriately placed on the importance of testing right now. So I'm going to leave it at that. Questions for me?
Yeah. Have you heard anything about the watch list? I was checking the numbers every day and they stayed the same, and ours, I knew it wasn't correct. So
that's part of the glitch in the state. The watch list, the criteria for getting on the watch list is pretty straightforward, to be quite honest with you. If you have 100 new cases per 100,000, now recognize we have, I think, a little over 86,000 citizens in Mendocino County. So let's just say 90,000 to keep the numbers simple. So that means for our 90,000 citizens, if we have 90 new cases every 2 weeks or within a 2-week period, we jump on the watch list. Well, we're there. We've easily had 90 cases in the last 14 days. The state has not caught up to our numbers. So there was a public health press release on July 25th that said we're on the state watch list. And then on July 31st, Dr. Doohan, I believe, Diana, you were the one who told me, who said, okay, we're not on the watch list because we're just under that threshold of that 1%. And then if you look back at the last 14 days, we've bypassed that. So it's just a matter of the state catching up with us. If you look at the numbers and you follow the state guidelines of what it takes to get on the watch list, we've hit the numbers. So right now there's kind of this battle of, are we on the watch list? Are we not on the watch list? Okay, I don't care if you put our name on it or not. If you're going strictly by the numbers, then everyone needs to acquiesce and say, we've made it. So that's what I want our community to know, is that technically we are there. We have more than 1% of an increase, 1% of cases noted per 100,000. So for us, that's 90. So that's where we're at. Should we open schools right now? To be quite honest with you, based on the number of cases as they continue to increase, my comment would be, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I feel comfortable with keeping this on the board agenda for us to review each time. But as of right now, I can't come to you and confidently say that our cases have decreased at such a rate that coming back to school is a good thing. I absolutely want to start school on August 19th. I want to keep I want to instill confidence in our families. I want our teachers and our staff to feel safe. And so for right now, I anticipate that we will be on the watch list. It's just a matter of time before the state catches up with us. And in which case, if we're on the watch list, we can't open back up anyway. Questions?
I just had comments. It is super frustrating, and I have been trying to keep up with it all. And every board is feeling the same thing we are. You know, everyone, including staff, want to go back on campus, but there's, you know, Dr. Miller really simplifies how simple it is to compare it to a cold, but at the same time, you know, no one knows how their body will react once they get the virus. But it is clear that there's, you know, 3 levels of safety with the, you know, to mitigate. And that the work that we did in March through June, we didn't have any cases at all in June, you know, in Fort Bragg, that we flattened the curve. And there was another viewing of him and Tabitha Miller with Fort Bragg, and I think it was at an hour 10 or hour 20, I can't remember. But he really feels like if we keep up with the masking and all the protocols that we're doing right now, that he thinks even the flu season won't be as severe. So I personally, and I've had a little bit of heat from people asking, why did you vote against, you know, the last meeting? And I'm not clairvoyant. I'm not going to try to get too far ahead. And I also was really afraid that we would lose some folks to another education process if we got too far down the road. So I appreciate it being on the agenda so that everyone can view their opinion, because this is personal in the sense that people are passionate about their health and welfare, but you can't take away that from any one person. I mean, everyone has different views and has different, you know, discussions with their doctors. So I just want to let everyone be able to voice, and maybe some of it's griping of their frustration, but everyone comes from different backgrounds and has different needs. And so we can't say that what my needs are and my neighbor's needs are the same, and that we're not all here on the same mission, that we want to support our kids in education, and we just need to support our teachers and get moving on the distant learning that we're focusing on right now. But I do think that it's, as they say, the devil is in the details. You know, we're watching and we get all this data, but we aren't doctors. We as board members are policymakers, but we're asked to learn these terms and try to figure out the data. And they're caught up with our deaths in our county, but I don't know why we're not read. I mean, it is bizarre. But if anyone has a small business in town and uses the payroll of our state, we're a little bit behind on our technology. So I'm not too surprised that it's a little skewed. But I appreciate it being on the agenda and the updates. And it's a collaborative. It needs to be a collaborative move. It's going to be a slow moving to make sure that the testing, there is OptumServe and Ukiah for testing, but that would take traveling, which would be really difficult. And I think we have to have a contact tracer that liaison with the county. So there's still some work to be done behind the scenes to move towards a different type of learning. But right now we're in distant learning.
So I want to just share my screen with you again, because I was searching around my computer for this chart. So I created a table just to show our staff in the staff blog that I maintain. And I wanted to show you the table. So these were the dates that I published the blog week, and these were the cases that we had in Mendocino County. And so I've been maintaining this every week to show folks where we're at. And so on March 23rd, we had one case in Mendocino County, and you could see we went 1, 4, 4, 4, 5. And then on June 15th, we hit 38. So now watch what happens here. June 22nd, we were at 54. Okay, June 29th, we were at 76. 85 on July 6th, right after July 4th. And then look at the increase that happens here. In 1 week, we went up almost 50. In the next week, we went up 60. And the next week, we slowed down a little, only went up 40. The following week, we went 80. The next week, about 70. And then we jump over into the hundreds. This is why we know we are going to be on the watch list. Okay. And so August 13th, I put today, but I publish the blog every week for the staff, and it's based on the previous Friday's numbers. So for right now, I anticipate that when I come and do the blog tomorrow, and this is the staff blog, and that this is going to be different. That it's not going to, obviously it's not going to be the 380. It's going to be what I showed you earlier, that 512 number. But I even anticipate tomorrow, when public health releases their dashboard Friday night, because it's always updated Friday night, I anticipate it's going to be higher than the 512. So those are things that we have to consider. We absolutely want to bring our kids back. We absolutely know it's the best thing for them to be in school. I do believe, like Dr. Miller says, that our schools are not going to be the hotspots of infection, that we are going to keep people masked. The reality is, though, while this is happening and it is going up considerably and we are on the watch list, it's out of our hands. So it's not really even a good consideration to say, well, we're not on it now, so let's just go ahead and open. We don't need to have that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I really do believe in what Kathy said in the last meeting. Let's give our families, let's give our teachers a good chunk of time, because we know distance learning is going to happen this year regardless. Let's give people a good chunk of time to know the technology, to get their routines together, to understand the structure of the day. And then hopefully we come back in October or November, whenever we get the release to do that. And we'll have the distance learning part down. Our teachers know how to do live instruction. So I appreciate the fact if we can provide teachers that time and families time to ease into this. I don't know if ease is the right word, but at least to be able to start this way and have everyone feel safe, to me, makes the most sense.
So I don't want to disregard the spread that we've had on the community, but I can't go without pointing out that the surveillance testing that started happening. So our numbers, jumped substantially. And I'm not a medical professional, but I attribute a lot of that to the testing that was happening. We didn't have any tests on the coast for a couple months. And then, more and more people are testing. So you're going to have more and more people that come back positive. So, I don't know what that statistically, how that plays into that or anything, but I really feel that has a lot to do with the spike in the numbers.
And also our clinic is really good about if you display symptoms and you're hitting the check boxes, you will get tested. So that's the other piece of it too. We did have people going into our hospital and into our clinic who didn't have quite all the check boxes. And then we had some people who had the check boxes were tested and they didn't come back as COVID. So for now, we are having more people tested. The level of testing that we would like on the coast, we're still not getting. And we can talk about some of our own employees who got tested and it took 3 weeks to get the test back. And so we're scratching our head saying, well, if they come back positive, how do you contact trace that? So, first off, I want to say out loud to the hospital and to the coast clinics, what an amazing job they are doing. They are working in an impossible situation and providing so much love and care for the community. So we don't want to create more of a burden on them. And that's one of the concerns that I have with us returning, that we have to have a testing plan, and I'm not sure how to pull that off. So we are going to be talking with other superintendents, with the county office, with the county public health officer to make sure that testing is readily available so that if we are able to come back, we have a very viable and meaningful testing protocol where the testing will come back within a reasonable amount of time so that we can respond appropriately. But waiting 3 weeks for a test to come back, why test? And I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful to the testing process, but if it's really taking you 3 weeks to have a test come back, that's not an effective test. It's no different than saying to a kid, here, take this test, and I'll tell you how you did in 4 weeks as we're moving on. So we have to look at the testing procedures in the county and what's available to us so that we can have a very meaningful plan moving forward.
And Becky, are you aware of how many people are in our hospital currently?
Ooh, when did you remember that? Was it 5?
They said, I don't know if they're in, I don't remember if they said how many were in our hospital today.
Okay. I saw on there, it said 15 total, but I didn't know.
Total, yeah. I don't remember if they said that this morning, how many are still in our hospital.
Okay, thanks.
I think in that last, the Miller, I think they said that it was decreasing for sure, and that everyone had recovered. The staff from the Sherwood Oaks had recovered, and so I think that Dr. Miller had was happy with the not being overburdened, that they really thought that they were going to be getting people from the South and they would have to house. So I know that's improving. But I just want, my last comment would just be a shout out to the businesses, because, you model and you watch from what they're doing, the local businesses. And it seems like from the county update that it's not from the businesses that the viruses that, getting the COVID, the transmission, it's about what people are doing on their downtime, not social distancing, not masking and being in crowds or parties. So I think that's pretty clear that the mitigation for the transmission is working. That if it's not business protocols or lack of, so that's really comforting.
And this is really hard for folks. I mean, I just want to acknowledge how unnatural this feels. I saw a friend of mine, I think 2 weeks ago on the weekend, and we stayed apart, and her children are my children. I mean, they feel like my children. I treat them like my children, like they're my sons. And I saw them, and it was all I could do not to hug them. But we said that we have to model for the kids. We stayed apart. We said hi, we visited, but I couldn't touch and feel them. And I have to tell you how unnatural that was for me. And I kind of think of myself as their auntie, and I couldn't do that. And that was so unnatural. And I think that's what's really difficult right now for so many of us, is that, as part of being human, we have that connection, that physical connection of hugging and shaking hands and doing all those things that we would normally do. And that's, if we're going to stop the spread, or at least bend this curve a little bit, those are exactly the things we have to stop. And if you're going to do them, mask up, hand sanitize, and that's not always the most immediate thing that we do. So for right now, if everybody just, I shouldn't say everybody just, because I'm not trying to trivialize it. If we can take our minds and put them into a place and pretend that everyone around us is just infected, and then sanitize up, stay masked up, stay 6 feet apart. We know that works. We've had some employees who've reported to me, I've been around someone with COVID. And my first thing out of my mouth was, were you masked up the last time you were with them? Yes. Did you keep good hand hygiene? Yes. I said, okay, according to Dr. Miller, you're probably going to be okay. And sure enough, so far so good. I mean, knock on my faux wood. We've had many employees be okay. So we have to be patient through this. We are not done by any means. If we can continue to support each other, remember those 3 things: masking, 6 feet apart, good hand hygiene, we can weather the storm.
So I just have a systemic comment, I guess, when you talk about, there's these rules for us to reopen and the testing. I mean, my initial reaction is, this sounds like the people that make the rules for education in general. I mean, they are making a set of rules that there is no way that we can meet. So, I mean, unless they're going to support, meaning the government to support the healthcare professionals to provide the testing, it just folds down. Mm-hmm. So they're putting us up against a wall that we can't meet those parameters, nor can anybody in the county or the state. So let's pretend we just have 200 employees. Let's pretend we have 200 employees and we have to do that level of testing. I don't know how much a test costs. I think the last number I heard was it 300?
Yeah, that's what I heard too. 300?
Okay, well, if we have only 200 employees and we're testing 200 employees every 2 months, well, that's $6,000 every 2 months. Okay, in a 10-month school year, that's $30,000. So that's the difficulty. And we have more than 200 employees, make no mistake. That's just an easy number for me to do some mental math quickly. So this is what we're up against.
Right. And then I have my sister-in-law is teaching a second and third grade, and that's right where the cutoff is, where they recommend masks and don't recommend masks. So it just doesn't make any sense from the state level coming up with these rules.
Well, and it's not just money. I mean, processing these tests. I mean, it boggles my mind that once again, they set us up for failure. We tell families we can do this, but in reality, you really can't meet that. You can't meet those parameters to open a school. So,
well, and to be honest,
frustrating.
Well, it's very frustrating, and to be honest with you, the testing component really irritated me because if people, I know we need to worry about folks who are asymptomatic, but again, I go back to what Dr. Miller said. If you have COVID and you're asymptomatic, the level of droplets that you have is not as profound. So if you're masked and you're practicing good hand hygiene, you are going to prevent the spread that way. And then when he talked about the hairstylist who had COVID but kept working and didn't pass it to any of their clients. And I'm not trying to trivialize it. Please hear me loud and clear. It is highly infectious. It is highly contagious. It is different than a normal flu season. And it can be deadly if you fall in the specific range. So I don't want to trivialize it at all. This is serious, 100%. We also know, though, that we can slow the spread. And so it's difficult for us to try and figure out how to open schools and then how to meet all these check marks to do that. So for right now, I don't want to belabor an ongoing discussion because I don't know if there's anything new to give you. I don't know if there's anything that drastically changed from July 30th to make any of you say, okay, let's open. There's been no changes, only an increase in cases, especially on the coast. The good news is that I believe from our local reports, the Sherwood Oaks outbreak is contained and people are recovering. But we've had quite a few deaths from that. And I think that rocked our world a little bit, as well as it should. No one likes loss of life.
So I don't want to belabor it either, but I do, the article that Nancy sent us and then which she pointed out in her letter, I find it really hard as somebody that's supposed to be making educated decisions with such conflicting information. So her article from the CDC, who's a government, they are supposed to be providing us with very, I would think, trustworthy information, yet it contradicts other, it says all these reasons why schools should open, which I agree with all of them, but it doesn't take into effect the adults in the piece. So it's almost right there. I don't know if it's pitying. I'm really kind of stumped, and I know right now is not when we have to really, because we can't. We're not going to be able to change anything now because of what's happening in our county. But when it really comes down to making that decision, and one entity says one thing and another entity is going to say another, mean, how do we make the best? It's going to be rough because we have to make the best decision with the information we have. And yet something, and sometimes I feel really guilty because my son has a lung and a half and I want him to go to school. I want him with his friends. I want him learning. I want him with his teachers who make such an impact in his life. But then sometimes I feel guilty. I shouldn't be thinking that he should go to school, but I don't know.
It's hard because we have this general balance of wanting to be able to provide for our kids. I mean, my son's had heart surgery. He had heart surgery at 17. And so he's in that group too. And he went to work 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him out there because I didn't want him locked in his room. It's a tough call, but it's really a family to family call. And if again, I go back to what Dr. Miller said, are we masking, hand hygiene, social distancing? I believe we can keep kids safe. The hard part is we are not in a position right now to say, let's go ahead and open, because our numbers are at a spot that when the state does catch up with us, we will be on the watch list, which is why I showed you that table. So while I do believe we can provide a safe environment for kids, now's not the time. That's my recommendation to you.
Right. Well, with all the conflicting reports and conflicting feelings within all of us, all wanting our kids back in school and, seeing the suffering, but we do have to bring it all together and just bit by bit, take it in and try to figure it out, but being as safe as we can. I know it's so hard to figure it out. Thank you for all you're doing and keeping tabs on everything.
Right, because you're really going to give us the pulse because you are going to all the meetings at OES. You're dealing with all the experts that are supposed to be helping us, the scientists and the doctors and the practitioners to help us, go through all of this. And what's even more strange is that we're not on the watch list, so we don't need a waiver, but we're not in a position to do the waiver. But if we were on the watch list, we'd have to wait to get off the watch list. I mean, when we were making a decision last month, we didn't have. The information is so conflicting, and these are our experts providing.
Very convoluted for sure. And even within the CDC, you look from one day to the next, it says one thing one day, and the next day it backs off from that or, contradicts itself. So it's a tricky situation to try to make a good decision.
Well, and I think it doesn't deal with the adults. A lot of, even listening to, what Dr. Miller says, it's all, the kids are much lower risk than the adults. So how do we factor, there's much more students in with the number of adults, but yet the adults may be at a higher risk. I don't know. Right. Anyway,
even that, the kids, they're seeing more and more kids getting it. So, it's just so hard to, and then what kids are getting it? Why do some kids they're not asymptomatic, they don't get it at all, and we haven't figured any of that out. So,
the adults can be more careful than kids because we're adults, but it's up to us to do what we need to do to advance this and move on. We're kids, exactly the data that's being headlined. We don't know we don't know the statistics. How many people out of what? They say 40% of suicides are up in our county. Well, I don't know how many suicides we have in our county. And there's a lot of enforcement and education going on. And we have the power to do what we need to do for ourselves, but we can't police other people. And children are going to be kids. But us adults, we have the power to do what we need to do.
So did anything come in from the public, Anna, while we were?
No, we've got nothing new.
Okay. All right. Well, as we know, if there's no further comments or questions, this item will be on every agenda. And as we discussed last month, even when with the vote, a hybrid model before October 9th, I think is the date. So just know just a reminder for the public that for you to call a special board meeting is 24 hours. Okay. All right. So there is no action. We've approved and we're staying with our plan at the time, correct? Okay. All right. So 10.2 is our MOU between the district, FBDTA, and FBUSD. So as this is a change in working conditions, so I don't know, Becky, if you want to give us any background.
So this is a change in working condition, and when there's a change in working condition, bargaining units meet with management and work out the conditions of how that working condition is, the changes are going to be managed. So you have in front of you a memorandum of understanding that we've come to an agreement with the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association. It is set to if approved by the board, it will expire on June 30th, 2021. The teachers have already reviewed it and approved it, so now it waits your approval.
Okay, so we'll open that up for any questions for Becky or comments?
Well, it looks very thorough, so thank you. Very detailed.
So I just had a couple of comments. So the first, I think it was 3.16. I'm just the student cohorts. I haven't reviewed all the schools, what their model is going to be during distant learning. And so this looks like it's something that's being, it was thrown in there to maybe if we had maybe a hybrid. I'm not following the student cohort size for, I think it was 6 through 12.
So that's if we return. If we return to an on-campus instruction, it's saying that at most teachers will have 2 cohorts. So in the middle school, that's going to be just fine because they have only 1 teacher. So if I'm a middle school teacher, I'm a 7th grade teacher, I'm assigned 30 kids. I divide those kids into 2 groups of 15. One group of 15 comes to school on Mondays and Tuesdays. The other group of 15 comes to school on Thursdays and Fridays. I've maintained that MOU guideline of 2 cohorts. For the high school, it's going to be a little bit different. Right now, the high school has 4 different groups of students. So if we took those 4 different groups and we split them into A days and B days, they would then have 8 different cohorts. And that goes against this memorandum of understanding. So what's going to happen is if and when we return, the high school students will be with their first period teacher for the full day in order to maintain the guidelines of this MOU. So they will come to, half of them will come on Monday and Tuesday, and they will either be with their virtual teams, which is an option. They could stay with their virtual team teacher. And I think that's one thing that the high school was potentially considering, or they could stay with their first period teacher. So those details have not been completely teased out. I do want to commend the high school for working out this great idea of having a virtual team. So it could be that they're with their virtual team and not necessarily their first period teacher, but the idea will be that the high school teachers will only have at most 2 cohorts, 2 live groups of students. One that they meet on Mondays and Tuesdays, that's going to be limited to 15 kids. One that they will meet with on Thursdays and Fridays, again, limited to 15 kids. We have not teased out all of the details. Will that be their virtual learning team? Will that be their first period? Will it be their first period for like 6 weeks and then we move to their second period for 6 weeks so that we maintain it in 4 to 6 week chunks? So those details have not been worked out yet. Once we get closer to opening school, we're going to have the high school work out those details and deliver them to us. But they will work out those details under the guidance of this MOU.
Okay. And then the other comment was for Wendy. So any of these improvements that need to happen or supplies, that's all covered under the CARES money that we have from the federal government?
So far, everything we're doing, there's sufficient money from those sources.
Okay, great. And then I'm excited. I'm getting excited, regardless of, what my kids want to do and what I want to do for education, getting started on distant learning, getting started on education is great. So I'm excited to see that they'll have office hours and time to communicate with families. Because I know that was a huge, it was difficult. And with the Parent Square I think that's what it was called, will make it easier to be able to communicate without having to exchange phone numbers.
So our staff is working incredibly diligently to bring this all together. And the difficulty is, I want to remind folks, we haven't done this before. We know that April, May, and June was not our best work. We know that it didn't go well. So we want to forget that for a moment and move forward with a whole new lens. And we know that our teachers are working hard in teams. They're working in their grade levels. They're working in their departments. They're working together to really rely on each other and support each other through this. What I would say to every student out there, if there is something that is not feeling right, if there's some barrier that you're hitting that you didn't anticipate, please communicate that with your teacher. Please communicate that with the site administration. If you can't get a hold of any of them, pick up the phone and call me. I'm at extension 3525. So please communicate with us what is happening. I cannot reiterate more than anything that we cannot address something if we don't know. I had a parent talk to me in Safeway and say, Becky, here's the deal. I have 2 kids at the middle school. Between my 2 kids, I have 14 teachers, and I didn't hear from X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, okay, did you call them? She said, well, I emailed. And I said, okay. And did they email back? And she said, no. And I said, okay, well, did you call the principal so we could try and help? She said, well, no. I said, okay. So here we are. We're going to move forward. We're going to do it better. If there's an issue that you have, please communicate that with us. We cannot help if we don't know. And our teachers are working tirelessly to make sure that this is better and this is more engaging, richer, better communication, richer, better instruction, richer, better education. So we need to have that partnership with our families so that we can help you address any needs that arise.
Right. And I just want to add one last thing. It's hard when you're a parent because you don't want to, call anyone out or get someone into trouble. And so then you don't call. So I think a lot of that was going on. Everyone didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't want to ask. And then we definitely didn't want to call the boss and say, hey, I can't, I'm not getting any communication. So I think this time around, we just have to kind of all be in it together. And I'm also excited to see that they'll have lots of time to collaborate together because, as board members during all of this crazy time, this is it. This is all the time we get to talk about this stuff. My family doesn't want to talk to me about it anymore. Mm-hmm. So just be thankful that you have your colleagues to share and bounce off and be efficient with this, distant learning and the unknown. But kids, we haven't had this before, so they're not going to know what they are missing or, just don't be so hard on yourself is what I'm getting at.
Well, and we have to communicate because I get it. I've had so many of my friends say, well, I didn't want to be that mom. No, be that mom, please. Mm-hmm. You're defending your children. And Our teachers, our administration, our schools cannot improve if we don't know there's an issue out there. I can't tell you how many times, even as a teacher, when someone said, well, I really didn't like the way you did this, Becky. Like, why didn't you tell me? I don't wake up in the morning and say, what can I do to stick it to people? I wake up in the morning saying, hey, I want to do the best job I can do. And so in order to do that, it means that I have to be open to feedback and I have to be open to asking for that feedback as well. So I'm asking for the feedback. If we are doing something as a district that is creating a barrier for your child's success, we need to know about it. And if we can help you overcome a barrier, then that's what we want to do.
So Becky, in the spirit of the MOU, let's say that something mutates in the fall or in the winter and COVID dies off. We can, theoretically, this MOU can then be renegotiated so that we could go back, say 5 days a week, where there wasn't these cohort limits and there isn't, I'm saying in the,
okay, so let me walk you through the process. Great question. Let's pretend a miracle happens and we say March 1, we can come back to full time. We'd have to look at the conditions. We'd bring the bargaining units back saying, here are the conditions, we can come back full time. And then we would have to bargain that this memorandum of understanding is now null and void. So yes, we could renegotiate that. But for right now, this MOU goes into effect until the end of the year because it compensates for the hybrid model. It gives us the ability to come back at the 2 days a week, which for right now, I feel safe in saying that if we can get to the end of the year and get kids back on campus even 2 days a week, I am telling you, I will take it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that, kind of like we said we were going to October 9th, but we know that we can backpedal if we have to. I just wanted to make sure that, we also have the, liberty to be able to, change this to where that, like I said, if everything's in a perfect world, no more safety issues with adults or children, and we can be on campus full time, that we can explore that with even if this is in place.
No, absolutely.
Okay. And Anna, has anything come in from the public?
No, we got nothing.
Okay. Scott, you unmuted a couple times. Did you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment, and really I'm just going to reserve a lot of it for my vote, but I admire and acknowledge all the hard work that went into this MOU, especially on the administrative side. Just hearing updates from Becky, how frustrating it's been. We're all trying to get the kids the best education they can this week. Just a little disappointed because in talking to some teachers, the lack of communication that it appeared FBTA had with some of their members. And also the fact that it would have been nice to see a little more flexibility. This is an ever-changing situation, and I would hope that there'd be a little more faith and trust in the administration to make decisions as this goes along, instead of every time there's a small change, we have to go back to the table and deal with whatever situation the people at the table are in, whether it's personal or representing all the teachers. I know this is a new situation for everybody, and it's hard and it's scary, but I just, from what the seat I sat looking in on at these negotiations, which was very far away, it would have been nice to see a little more leeway, maybe on both ends. But again, that doesn't take away from all the hard work that everyone went to put this through. So I'm glad, believe me, I'm glad that there are teachers that will be teaching our children in a district that will be able to support education in our community. I don't want to take that away.
And please know that we had a whole bunch of people working tirelessly through the summer on this, and I know you all know that. And it's difficult because there's so much conflicting information that comes out there. I mean, just in all of you looking at, do we reopen, do we not reopen? A lot of that was, happened within the process of this. And I will say that our teachers absolutely want to teach our children. Make no mistake. That is 100% the absolute unifying factor in all of this. Our teachers want to teach our children. I think the difficulty is that we have to provide an arena and a space, an environment where folks feel safe. And what's difficult right now is that there is so much conflicting information, is that it goes back and forth. Mm-hmm. So I never anticipated any of this to be easy, because we are dealing with people's emotions. And when you are dealing with something on an emotional level, it makes it very difficult to tease through the not facts, but just what is. So I know that everybody worked really hard, and I know there was frustration on so many levels, but I'm pleased that we came to an agreement, and I'm pleased that we have a lot of good things that are happening because of COVID, believe it or not. And I think that moving forward, we can move from a positive place.
Well, that's really good to hear. I know that, running a private business with just as much threat to COVID as a school would have, having to deal with negotiating every little thing with employees, it's got to be really frustrating. There are guidelines that the state puts out there for how to run whatever business you're in. And I think just having a little bit of faith in those guidelines is really important. And again, I'm grateful for all the hard work. I just wish there was some stuff in there that gave a little bit more flexibility moving forward, so that every time there's a change, it's not a 3-month process, or however, maybe it's not, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, the thing with this MOU, and I just want to remind the board, is that it expires on June 30th. This is really about COVID. This is not the forever. This is really about making sure that our bargaining unit feels safe coming back to work, that our kids know that their teachers are supported, our teachers know that we support them as administrators, and that we're working together to make sure that our community's children, that we are educating the youth of our community. That's what this is all about. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our kids, and I believe that we are.
So Becky, a follow-up question to one of Scott's points is that I see that Gary Lewis has signed it. I'm assuming, waits until we approve it. And then does it get ratified by the union, or has it been ratified?
It's been ratified. The unions
so they have
voted.
Okay.
Yes. And
so
that'll be the same
majority.
Yes. So it'll be the same process with CSEA. We have an MOU with CSEA, but it's not going to come to the board until the unit approves it. And the reason for that is we can't bring you something that they haven't approved, because then you approving it is pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So we wait for the units to approve it. Then once they get it, then it comes to us and we place it on the board meeting. So FBDTA has had a membership meeting. They've come together and they've approved it. That's why Gary signed it. He is the lead negotiator.
So do you foresee, one last question, maybe it's money, do you foresee having to have like technology PD for staff, or that's really not the flavor you're getting right now?
It's happening.
It's happening. So that's happening. Okay.
So they're getting PD on the smart TVs that we just purchased.
Okay.
And then the principals are working with their staff individually by site to address their needs.
Okay.
So Kelly had done the Google Classroom bootcamp that we provided in the summer. And then what we also did in June before the teachers left for the summer, we asked for proposals that people could put in a timesheet for summer work in order to prepare for the following year. And so we had some teachers take advantage of that. Some teachers did it for their daily rate of pay. Some teachers did that work for DCEC units, which is the District Continuing Education Credit. But we also provided that because we knew that the summer was going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of teachers took advantage of that. So when we say, teachers were working tirelessly, I'm not just saying that. I'm seeing the DC units come in. I'm seeing the timesheets come in. I'm seeing all of this coming in. We have documented evidence that there was work being done in the summer.
Well,
and it's admirable because it's usually the time when folks kind of replenish and rejuvenate. So we'll get there. We have a lot of work to do. And I know that it's difficult to see this because people are so highly agitated about having their kids come back. We want someone to blame. There's no one to blame on this. We need to be able to come back when it's safe for us to do that. So the MOU is necessary because it's a change in working condition. If we want to instill trust in our bargaining units, then we need to stand by whatever agreements we present to the board and what we sign. So,
right. Well, it's not addressed in this MOU, and I just wanted to make sure the teachers were speaking to their sites, what they needed, and, more from their perspective, not so much a push down to what they need to do. That was I just want to clarify that they had a role and, really had the opportunity, because it's not in the MOU, that what do they need to be supported during the distant learning?
So we also did a staff survey. I think we did, I want to say it was like July 24th that we had a survey out. And so that from that survey is how we started getting supplies. And that's where the smart boards came from. And so we're doing the best that we can. I also want to remind people that this has been a crash course. So we have this CARES money. It's not a blank check, but it has to be encumbered and spent by December 31st. Is that correct, Wendy? Right.
30th, yeah.
December 30th. So we're doing our best to access and use those funds as appropriately as possible. Someone made the comment to me, well, how come you guys move so quickly on getting these smart boards? If we have to spend money by December 30th, doesn't it make sense to spend the money before school starts so that we have those tools for the whole year? Of course it does. And so that's why we've been moving so quickly. And that's why we've been really trying to target those dollars for programs and tools that are necessary to help make distance learning better. We are lucky in Fort Bragg Unified because we have one-to-one devices. We had one-to-one devices before COVID hit us. By having one-to-one devices before COVID hit us, we were able to use our CARES money to buy these bigger, better purchases. We aren't struggling to buy 1,800 Chromebooks. We have enough Chromebooks for not only our students, but also for our staff. And that, again, my hat comes off to Ari Rule and Wendy Boyce because it was their planning and their strategic budgeting to make sure that we kept buying some every year until we got that. So here we are. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Wendy. And so now we have these great tools in our classroom that we never would have purchased otherwise because we never would have the money to do it. So back to the MOU. Well, you have in front of you an MOU that FBDTA has approved. I would not bring you and present to you an MOU if we didn't feel confident with it. So you have an MOU in front of you that requires a vote.
So I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association and the Fort Bragg Unified School District.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All right, Anna.
Okay. President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mackellar?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider? Trustee
Yes.
Schneider? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to 10.3, a budget update. So Wendy will let you take that away.
Okay, so because the state adopted budget was so different from what we adopted in June, which was based on the May revision, we're required to present a revised budget for approval within 45 days. 45 days is tomorrow. So this was very timely date for the meeting. You can see that the revenues are increased both on the unrestricted and the restricted side. The unrestricted side is due almost entirely to returning to the LCFF formula. They basically held us harmless. So our funding is going to be flat this year from last year. So that was a boost to our income. There are a few other minor things that we did make changes to on the unrestricted side, but not anything huge in the expenses. We're still settling out, waiting for the dust to settle on staffing. I think those costs are going to go up a little bit, but I'm hoping we'll be able to keep them where they are. The restricted side shows the increase. We finally received some guidance and solid information about the amount and expirations of those funds. Most of them, like Becky mentioned, have to be spent by December 30th, not encumbered. If they were encumbered, we could use them for positions for the year and encumber it at the beginning of the year, but we can't do that. We have to have it spent by December 30th, and there's been no talk about relaxing that at all. There are some small amounts in there that expire at the end of this year. A very small piece actually goes out for about a year and a half, but we don't have a whole lot of time to spend it. And we've been very thoughtful, and we've been trying to make sure that we're thoughtful about how we're doing this, because it is intended to be for learning loss mitigation. And the smart boards in particular were a way to help not only teachers meet with their students live in something that wasn't 6 by 9 inches wide, but also when we were planning for a hybrid model originally before we got completely shut down, where it would meet one of the requirements where the students are required to have interactive daily time with their fellow students. So this would allow the students in the classroom to see all of the students who are online, and ones online can see their fellow students in the classroom. So this was a nice model, and the interactivity of it with that and the computer that's built into it would be a good tool for the teachers to have for that sort of distance learning model to be able to present things more fully. And we are looking at the online components of a lot of programs to help kids catch up, to assess. So that's where we're focusing a lot of that. And we are using it through December for one of the counselors, because one of the targets for that money is the emotional and mental well-being of students. So that ties right into that. We're working with our NPA on Hallie DeVrill with a special side contract to work with children's mental health issues that are related to the isolation they might have felt from this whole COVID thing. So, and again, you can see the expenses have, aside from the restricted side where we've included the expenses associated with the COVID revenues, other expense areas haven't changed very much. And we really, really, really are trying to keep that down because the future economic outlook is very, very tenuous. Every day, something different comes out about what may or may not be happening. And the longer this goes on, the more difficult it's going to be for the state to recover. Even with the negotiations going on in Washington, if the current executive order for unemployment benefits continues, they want the states to pick up 25% of that. That'll destroy the state. The state can't afford that. And so there's so much uncertainty in the next 2 years that we're really going to try to maintain the level of spending that we have. I mean, it's going to automatically go up a little bit each year because it just does that. And if you look at the out years, you can see that in the second year, we have a real fat bottom line, but then in the year after that, we end up back where we are looking at the end of this year. And that's maintaining our level of services, but with the losing all of that revenue. And it's also, our revenues are based on a 3-year rolling average. So there are certain changes in ADA things that are going to catch up to us in that third year that are going to bring our revenues down again. So being able to maintain that will help us get through the cash flow crunch that if you looked at the common message, you could see what's happening there. You know, February, we get paid in November, March, we get paid in October, and so forth. So having a cushion will help us weather that, and hopefully we'll be able to do that without doing any borrowing. I'm really hoping we'll be able to manage that. So there isn't any formal state form like you're used to seeing when there's a budget adoption. It just has to be, it's almost more like a budget to actuals that you see periodically anyway, but it had to be done within that 45-day period. I'm guessing once the legislature comes back and cleans up all of the mess they made, that we'll have maybe not as, well, certainly not as significant, but some changes that we'll see for first interim, which that period ends October 31st. You'll see those reports in December. Questions?
I had one question about, I noticed the STRS. I know our contribution went down, but the PERS seems like it jumped considerably in the third year out. Is that?
Where are you looking in particular?
Oh God, I have to find it. I wrote it down because This is also tiny. I'm looking at it on my
Page
iPad.
9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Page 9 on that table, Wendy.
There we go.
The planning factors for 2021 and the multi-year
Oh, that's in
projection.
the common message.
Mhm.
Yeah, then that's some of that. Again, that's probably going to change all over the place. And that's because a lot of that is because they look at the out years based, and so much of their forecasting is based on market returns on their investments. And they're looking at what's going on and thinking, we could be in some trouble here. So that's why that they adjusted that upwards from where they had been before.
Oh, I got you.
The
Okay.
STRS went down a smidge because part of what the state did to help offset some of the hit that schools were taking by not getting the COLA was pay down a little bit of the liability that is actually their liability anyway, but they put on us to cover. So that's why that went down a little bit, but you can see it takes a pretty significant jump in the third year.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So my question is, it looks like, so I guess the CARES money's in here is what you're saying. And is that how we're staying out of the deficit spending for that 21-22? I mean, it improved a fair amount, the ending balances. So how are we doing that? Is it with the board reserve or it's
because, no, it's not with board reserve. It's because when we adopted the budget, that second year had a reduction, a 10% reduction for 2 years on it.
Oh, I gotcha.
So with that being restored and with not making significant changes to our expenses, that's why we ended up with a better bottom line. I don't think we're going to be able to maintain that. I think we're going to end up spending some of that because eventually we'll run out of the CARES Act money, and there will undoubtedly be things that we'll have to do that we won't be reimbursed for. And the regular costs of things are going to go up, and we have no control over that. So I think we'll have some idea with the first interim where the state is headed, but I think it's going to be next spring before we really see truly what impacts on the out years are going to be, because like I said, it's looking more like an L shape than a U shape or a V shape. So this is just, as the longer this drags on, the more real that is, which makes it more important to be as careful as we can.
Right. And the reports that I'm getting, our unemployment for the state is 12%. That's not so hot. Normally you want to keep it under 3.
Right.
I think the highest I've seen, maybe not in my life, but 17. So we're not, I mean, it's not dire, but it's pretty bad. And then our local sales tax is down 20% for our local city. So that's telling that, I mean, if that's our local number, the state's got to be, I don't know, it's going to be.
Right. Well, the state's going to end up having to help the cities because the cities are drowning. They're just drowning. And the cities depend largely on their sales taxes. The hit to income taxes is not going to probably be huge for 2020 because we had the things didn't shut down until we had 3 months of normalcy. And then you had the federal unemployment stimulus that helped a lot of people maintain, which is a taxable income. And then you had some people going back to work. 2020 is probably going to be down in personal income tax, but probably not as much as 21 unless things change dramatically soon. More and more you're hearing about businesses that have been around forever that are just giving up because they can't take this open, close. And it's unfortunate, but it's why we have to be really, really cautious this next 6 months to wait and see what's going to happen before we make any drastic changes in anything we're doing. I mean, you think about it's not just, the local restaurant that's opening and closing and having to lay off part of their staff. It's also the food vendors and beverage vendors that they support and their employees and, the the ripple effect of all of this is just huge. It's really, really huge.
So I just had a couple comments. Reading the common message, I just want to comment that reading through and them having comments, things like monitor cash monthly, and to make sure that you are doing thorough and meticulous accounting and review. And I just want to thank you, Wendy, for creating an environment where we trust you and we know that you do an excellent job at what you do, and you're always way ahead of what is happening with school finance. And I just want to thank you, because I feel confident that you will know way before they tell you you have to know. So thank you for that. And they did talk about borrowing. And so when you said we don't have to borrow, that made me feel good too.
And, I'm hoping we don't have to borrow.
Yeah. The one thing I'm a little worried about, and this even happens in non-COVID years, is that, when you look at if people just look at the bottom line and see these carryovers and things, they're going to say, well, why aren't we doing raises? Why aren't we doing more money in technology? Why aren't we, putting in all those plexiglass cubicles so the band kids can play, horns and whatnot. But yet we have no idea, like you were talking about, how the long-term effects of what the state and federal monies will be. And so I just want people not to just look at that one thing, because it's such a global picture and so many layers and so many variables that I just don't want anybody to get the misconception that we have all this extra money.
No.
So anyway, that's
and
just
I
kind of my comment.
really honestly believe that we're going to end up back with the reduced amounts in the out years. I think the state pretty much dug deep into the coffers and spent down just about everything they had to do this for 2021. And so they really don't have anything else to fall back on in the out years. And this is dragging on, and the feds are not coming to our rescue. So I don't think that those numbers are going to hold up, those out years.
And I'm also worried about the intervention that's going to need to happen when we do come back on campus. Mm-hmm. The gap between our kids is going to just become more drastic, I think. So, we're going to have to figure out ways to do that pretty creatively with the funds the way they are. So.
And one last comment. This also, maybe the public doesn't know, but I believe they held our ADA, right? Or from last year. So who knows, with all of this going on with COVID and families having to potentially move or choose a different educational option, we could have declining enrollment very easily in the next few years. So that makes me super nervous, because like you've said, over the years, 10 kids can be, it's a fair amount of money.
So right now we've declined from last year. The good news for us is that our ADA is being held harmless. We are going back to last year's ADA as of February 29th is where we are being funded. And so we need to get the kids back and get our ADA back up.
So Anna, is there anything from the public?
No, there is nothing.
Okay. All right, board, do you have any more questions or comments before we approve the revised budget?
So I'll move that we approve item 10.3, the approval of the 45-day revised budget.
Okay.
I second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, Anna.
Okay. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makela?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And President Babcock?
Yes. Okay, I am going to ask that we take just a quick break. So let's take 5 minutes, and we will come back at 8:44.
Okay.
It is 8:44, Madam President.
Okay, so we're back in business. We have a few information and discussion items tonight. So the first one is our academic calendar, and this gets brought to us multiple meetings, and then I believe action is November, correct? Or is it
Yes.
October? Okay.
No, action is in October because it has to be approved by November 1.
Okay. So I think we've moved past the days of lots of arguing about the calendar. So Becky's bringing us only 2 this time.
So I want to just note, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see it, but I do want to note that you should notice something significantly different. We did negotiate with FBDTA, and let me share my screen. Typically, we have 5 pre-service days at the start of the year. And what I mean by that is that the teachers come in 5 school days before the students begin. So in the 21-22 school year, they will be coming in 4 days prior to the students beginning. And that 5th day is going to provide us a professional development day on the first work day in November. So what you see is that on November 1st, hopefully you can all see my screen. So what you should see on November 1st is you should see that you have this, if you can see my mouse rotating furiously, around November 1, that is a professional development day, which means the kids get to sleep in on that Monday and not go to school. The teachers get to come in and we get to do rich professional development. What I'm excited about is that provides us a day at the start of our year. And when I mean start, I mean within the first 10 or 12 weeks of the school year, where we can provide professional development after the year gets going. That's one of the things that has always been difficult as an educational institution. You want to provide ongoing training. How do you do that? And what we typically do is we say, okay, we'll pay for a whole bunch of substitute teachers to come in so that our teachers can be trained during the school year. That becomes incredibly costly. So this is going to give us the opportunity to have a full day of professional development in the first trimester of the school year so that we can take that learning and apply it to our students right away. So I'm excited about it. I think this is a good move. There are many districts in our county that actually do this. And so because we negotiated the calendar for this year already, we negotiated this with the teachers in our spring negotiation session. And this was actually brought to you, I believe, in the June school board meeting for the FBDTA approval. So what you have in these 2 calendar proposals are the 4 days prior to the start of school. You have the professional development day on November 1st. And then what comes into question is we have the 2 days in the October break. We talked about that last year, that if that was the goal, then I wasn't going to bring you more days on the October break. So 2 days of the October break. And then 1 extra day on the first version on April 18th, and you see that as an SD for a snow day. We are being told by the state, at least before COVID hit, that if a district is consistently applying for waivers because of power outages, snow, whatever it is, that you take a day off, that the school district is to build in snow days so that those days can be made up. So we have an extra day on April 18th, which is the day right after a spring break. And then the second version has the snow day on April 25th. And so some people say, well, why would you do that? Well, because if it's truly going to be a snow day and we have to make the day up and we attach it to spring break, no one's coming in. So if we put it the week after, we have a greater likelihood that people would come. But it's up to you. I'm not going to die on a hill for any of these. And if we do get a waiver successfully, then we don't need to use the day. Okay, that's the other piece. But the state, I anticipate, especially with the money woes, that waivers are not going to be as friendly. But Wendy, I don't know what you've heard about.
Well, the other problem with the waivers is we generally don't get them approved in time to know whether or not we need to use the snow day or not. And if we have one built in and we need 2, we're more likely to get the 1 if we have something built in to make up some of it.
So PS, I just want to remind folks, we had 4. The good news is if we go distance and it's not because of power, we will be able to do a distance learning model quite well by then. But if we're going out because of power, the Chromebooks and our smart boards aren't going to do us a bit of good. So something to consider. You're not voting on it now, just something to consider. If there are other things you'd like me to present to you, let me know, and I have no problem moving things around. The main things that you want to see is that school ends on June 10th. And so then the perpetual calendar kicks in. You count 8 Mondays back. That's when spring break is. The February break has to be during the week of President's Day. President's Day in 2022 is February 21st, which is why the February break falls where it does. And then you have the Martin Luther King holiday. You have the winter break, Thanksgiving break. Those are all in the normal places. And then the October break, the 2 days is eight weeks. So our calendar is pretty locked into beginning and ends. We start with the end date and work backwards, and that's how this calendar was developed. And the big question mark really is going to be those extra snow days. We don't ever have snow, but that's how people refer to them. So you're not voting tonight. It's just something to think about and discuss. And if there's something you'd like me to present that's different, I'd be happy to do that.
So Becky, I have one comment, one question. My comment is in April, you have an extra Passover. My question is, can we move the Professional Development Day on November 1st to Friday, November 12th?
Hold on. I'm still getting over the Passover. So sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
I think the April 15th through 23rd is wrong.
Your other calendar only had it once. This one has it twice.
It is. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it does end on April 3rd in 2021.
Okay. I remember looking that up. So I just forgot to take it off when I copied it. Okay.
Yep.
So thank you for the extra Passover.
It's a great holiday.
Okay.
And the next question was, can we move the Professional Development Day from November 1st to November 12th?
We bargained it to be the first work day in November. And so strategically, if people think about it, it's the day after Halloween. That's how that's typically chosen. And let's just talk about the dirty little secret. The day after Halloween in schools is not really an exciting day.
Maybe it's too exciting.
Because the night before was way too exciting, and the amount of candy and the amount of hyperactivity that happens on that day. And believe it or not, that's why most schools take it off for a Professional Development Day. Great question about November 12th, especially because of where it falls. My concern would be that we would have folks, it wouldn't be true professional development because we'd have people taking a 4-day holiday. I know, I mean, I would want to. I totally get that. But it was bargained specifically first work day in November.
Okay, so I just want to, anything from the public, Anna? Okay. If the public does want to comment on the calendar, I don't want to add to your plate, but I don't know who, I guess it's you, right?
No, yeah, and there's time. Typically we put out a survey. I don't know if it's even worth it to put a survey out, to be quite honest with you. There's usually 3 or 4 things. Like the last year, the survey was important because you had to decide on that end date. Do we do the end date? Was it going to be June 4th or was it going to be June 11th? That's a big shift. You know, that affected a lot of things in the summer. So I don't know if it's worth it to put a survey out for the calendar this year, to be quite honest with you. If you want me to, we'll absolutely do it. I don't think it's going to matter, to be quite honest with you. There's nothing so drastically different that it impacts people's work. So, and I'll put the snow day wherever you want it. I think we need, to be honest with you, I think we just need to be responsible and have it in there. But you could decide where you want it.
And so how does that work? How the snow day we may not need, I mean, most likely we probably will. But if, let's say we had the generator in Fort Bragg keeps us rolling, we don't have any outages, that's just a day off, or you just pull it out?
No, it's just a day off. Because we are required to meet for 180 school days. Both these calendars have 180 school days. So if we meet all those 180 days, and that snow day turns into a non-paid, a non-duty day. Now, essentially, someone will say, well, wait a minute, are you not going to pay us? Okay, our employees are paid for the days that they work. So all employee contracts are based on the paid work days of the school year. So, and it's different for 12-month employees than 10 and 11-month employees. So if you are a teacher or an instructional aide or a secretary or a librarian, someone that is based on the school days, that day isn't going to matter whether it's there or not. It'd be no different than the day like July 4th. That doesn't matter under your contract. And they are, and those employees, their contracts are evenly distributed over 11 or 12 months, however they opt to get paid. So that one day isn't going to like be docked. It's already calculated in their contract. But if they get a day off, and a day off is very loose. Please understand. If we have a PSPS day in October, then and we have to make that day up, it would be on that snow day. And the difference for us is if we take one of those days, it's not as if the teachers can meet with their kids and keep school going. If the teachers could meet with their kids and keep school going, then we could apply for a waiver and do those things. But that's not really the nature of how it works.
And Wendy, when you said that the waivers, we don't hear back for a long time, how far out would that be? Like say we took a PSPS day in October, when would we hear back?
Well, the last one, it was, I want to say it was May before we heard about the one in October.
Okay, so
although they kind of blanket said everybody was going to get that one, but that was
my phone.
It takes months. Many months. So it just depends on when it falls. And then, if we get the waiver in immediately, we could find out ahead of time. But even if we, like last time we lost 4 days, if we'd had one built in, that would have looked a whole lot better. Right. We've been able to hang our hat on the fact that we're trying to make up the days. We're trying to work it into our calendar to have those extra days.
And so
some districts have more days built in. Some of them, a lot of them have a couple of days built in.
And so the 25th would be a little better in terms of the waiver. We might hear by then.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know if it makes that much difference, really.
No. Okay.
And really, the reason why we're presenting it to you this way is because we are an ADA district. We are funded on our average daily attendance. And if the state decides that you didn't build in a snow day, we're taking a day of funding away from you. That has huge implications for us. And that's not something that, especially in this COVID environment, with what we're looking at from the state, I don't feel that it's prudent, that it's fiscally responsible for us to present to you a calendar that doesn't have something built in to safeguard that. So that's the concern at this point. Has the state said, yes, you absolutely have to have a snow day? No. Have they warned us about it prior to COVID? Oh, yes. Should we take it seriously right now? Yes, because we are worried about our financial bottom line. So it makes sense to err on the side of caution, have a little bit built in. It's one day. And if we don't use it, everybody gets the day off. If we need it, it's there. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay, so I just ask if there's any public feedback to either email, Anna says no for tonight, but if you have any, you can either email the board members and then we'll pass that on to Becky, or you can email Becky directly, but we would have to give it to her anyway. So that's not something we could field for her, but I wish we could. Okay, 11.2, the architecture request for quotation.
Okay. So as I mentioned in the cover, we sent the requests to 5 firms. We received proposals or statements of qualifications from 2. We are planning on continuing to work with Quattroki Quack. We've worked with them a lot in the past. They pricing model they have in there is fairly close. QKA is a smidge higher, but the fact that they already have the history of the world of Fort Bragg Unified in their records, we felt was going to save a lot of time and a lot of aggravation for a lot of people, and probably some billing time on their part, because they do have all of the plans for all of our sites from all of those years. So they're starting from a position of understanding our district really well. So that's who we're going to start working with. When things settle down a little, with the COVID, we'll start talking about getting some community people together. We do have, we'll talk about this next, I might as well combine it. We have 2 applications for the Citizens Oversight Committee, and we'll probably bring those people in to start this sort of walkabout. Once we have an idea of what we're looking at, we'll probably talk to the architects first to get a sense of the feasibility of the wish list we have, and then bring in the community to start helping us prioritize and get input and feedback about what the community would like to see happen, and help explain to them, and they can in turn help explain to the rest of the community what we're looking at and why we're looking at the projects we are. Questions?
So is there any questions? So you don't really need, sorry, Diana.
Well, I was just going to say, so the folks that you've worked with in the past, they're from Santa Rosa, so they're kind of closer than the other folks that are in San Rafael. Probably doesn't really matter. But you've used them a number of times, even for the high school.
Yes, we worked with them on all of the modernization projects, and actually prior to that with I think the Redwood roof, and which was decades ago. And there was some work done at Dana Gray 100 years ago that they worked on. So like I said, we consulted with them when we were looking at moving those portables, and they came up and they told us how much it was going to cost just to get a site footing ready to move them to on top of the moving. So they're well aware of all of the work that's been done here, where all of the landmines are as far as potential projects.
And then just my last follow-up question. So all the little hiccups that happen in like with the high school project and everything wasn't due to the architectural plans. It was just a matter of materials or contractors, and someone leaves, doesn't do the job. It was nothing to do with their work.
Right. It was mostly the contractor either not following the specs completely, or somebody not really thinking before they did something. So no, they were on it pretty well. They were also really, really helpful in finding ways to help us leverage the bond money we had using other state funds. And they were also really helpful working the process through the state quagmire of DSA and the state, what do they call it? The Department of Architects, State Department of Architects, and all of they worked very well with the contractor and with all of the inspectors that we had to deal with. So, I mean, going into projects like these are very stressful to begin with, and trying to do it with a group of people you don't know it makes it even more stressful. So that it just, there wasn't any compelling reason to change.
Okay. Any further questions or comments for Wendy? Okay, so we don't have to approve anything.
No, because it's not really a contract. There are no dollars or anything. It's just where we'll start consulting with them and figure that part out from there. You will have to approve any contracts that come up as a result. We'll bring those to you.
And is it traditional, because I haven't been through this process, but to ask for 5 and only get a couple back? Is that pretty normal?
I don't actually know how many. I'm guessing it probably is here because of where we are. The other firms were a little farther away, and they probably looked at the travel costs and said, I don't think so. So I don't really know exactly why, but we just got the 2.
Well, it sounds like we got at least one that was good.
Yep.
Anything else? Nothing from the public? Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the related item, the Bond Oversight Committee.
And like I said, we've had 2 people who have submitted applications. So once we do start getting up and really discussing some of these things a little more concretely, we'll bring them in. We'll still have to scrounge around and try to find some other people. We'll reach out to people we know and see if we can convince them that this is a worthy thing to do. And hopefully by the time we need them, we'll have a more complete group. I know when I did it, we started off with the requisite number of people and it quickly dropped off because it's such invigorating stuff to talk about and look at every month or every quarter, however often we had to meet. And so it's, I think we'll be able to find some people, especially once we start talking about the proposed things that we want to do. Then we'll get more feedback from people, more interest from the community, because right now we really don't have anything to share with them. And one of them is somebody who was on the Citizens Oversight Committee when I was on it before, so I know she knows that what she's looking at and what she's getting into.
That's great. Okay, any questions for Wendy on that? Okay. All right, so the very invigorating board policy review. I didn't mean to sigh that much. If that came through though. Diana.
So are you still taking more applications? Is there an actual deadline or?
Oh, no, there's no fixed deadline on it until we reach the number of people. We were hoping to try to get a certain number of people within a certain amount of time because of the requirement that we attempt within a certain amount of time after certifying the election to form a committee. And so we have met that burden of attempting to form a committee within that required amount of time.
And we have 2 people. That's huge.
We have 2 people. Woohoo!
Good job.
Wendy, what 2 groups did those 2 people come from? It says to have 1 member from each of the following groups: business, senior citizen, parent guardian, PTO member, taxpayer.
One is definitely a PTO member and the other is a business person.
Huh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So anything else on bond? Okay. On to policy review. So
it's 120 pages of love.
It is. Now let's see if I can remember or read my notes from when I went through them. All right.
And truly, this one, I have to say, it's a lot of and Anna, you can back me on this. A lot of this is just laws. That the changes in the law, they're pretty standard. There's not a whole lot of controversy on this.
My concern with it in general is that I don't know. It seems to. I don't know if it's really add or bring to the forefront when we review these, that there's a lot of things that are supposed to be on people's calendars. You know, like the first one is this SELPA group. And I don't know if that really, I know that we're part of a bigger SELPA, not a local one. So does that mean that Carolyn has to review this every 3 years, or is that SELPA's?
That's SELPA's job. So usually it comes
so we don't have to.
And I'm a voting member of the SELPA. SELPA is the Special Education Local Plan Area, and that is out of MCOE, our Mendocino County Office of Education. So that these things, like I anticipate that this is going to come up on the September SELPA meeting that we have, and it'll be voted, and then it'll come back to us, and then there's going to be a process that happens with this one. So anything SELPA and special ed, it comes through the SELPA.
And that one was set up for option 3 already, and already did all that for us. So thank you for that. Anybody have any questions on BP 0430?
No.
Nope, you asked the one I had.
Okay, yeah, that was my.
Yeah.
Okay, then there was an AR for that as well. So anything there? Okay. BP 13123, uniform complaint procedures. There is an AR for that as well. I didn't have anything. Does anybody else have?
New law things, nothing super.
No, it had a preschool complaint form, and I mean, I haven't been over to our preschool. Do we have outdoor shade? That was the one requirement.
Excessive heat has not been something that we have worried about in Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about the shaded areas.
We probably have a tree back there.
Fog. Yeah, fog.
Yeah. Okay. And then BP and AR 1340. And they kept saying that it has to be their device. So really the only thing I could think of was cameras. Is that you can't touch it and you can't wreck it. So I couldn't think of any other, you can't put it through a copy machine. So is that really what they're referring to? Is that you're supposed to come in with a little camera or your phone or something?
Phone.
Yeah.
Someone could have a portable printer and
but you couldn't touch it. You can't touch it.
You can't touch it.
It's very bizarre.
There is some rules with that, with accessing documents and being allowed to look, take pictures of it or not.
I think that it was probably set up to alleviate the whole district charging people to take copies of public records, so it didn't get complicated. And rather than saying, I'm going to charge you 45 cents a sheet, they say, okay, I need copies of this, this, and this. Here, I've got my camera.
Well, and what I do like about it, they added, is that the superintendent can impose reasonable limits, because you don't want someone to come in and spend 8 hours.
300 pages.
Right.
Yeah.
They she has the power to curb the burden.
Okay, so nothing, just odd in my opinion. I mean, I understand, Anna, makes perfect sense when you explain it. Okay, so then there was BP and AR 41229, employee notifications.
Yeah,
and this is what...
It's just language, gender neutrality.
And I just wanted that our Keenan, I'm sure, is what I can't think, not solidifies. It's too late and I can't think of the word, but I have suffices this. But
the Keenans are updated every year to make sure that they comply with all current laws. So if there's anything Keenan, it would comply with board policies as they are written right now.
And then I also had a question mark. It said written plan. Do we have a written plan?
Do we have a written plan?
Employee handbook.
It's on page 56.
So we have an employee handbook that we've been working on, and the sites have employee handbooks. And so we're still working on that.
Okay. Again, I'm not I just want, if we're going to put something in
print, then we got to do it.
That's all.
Some of the employee notifications, it tells you when they have to be notified. So some might be upon employment, or some might be annually. And those things, I think, are much more easy to keep in place and are in place. But that doesn't mean to say they're all covered.
And we also did that with MCOE. I want to say, was it the fall of last year when the Chief Human Resources Director at MCOE, Ryan Mahan, came and joined us and actually went through our hiring procedures with us to make sure that we had all the appropriate employee notifications. And then we digitized much of that so that it goes out into an email.
Right.
And then
also, a lot of the new employees do it as part of their initial enrolling Keenan packet. So Susie has them digitized. So when they go in to start their Keenans, a lot of these notifications and one signature pages are part of that whole process.
And then things like this, the bloodborne pathogens, all of you get to do that in Keenan too. So we meet these requirements in different ways, not necessarily one just whole packet of handbook. And because these regulations are subject to change every year with litigation, or not litigation, I'm sorry, legislation. Wrong word there. Sorry, Diana. With legislation, it's so much more efficient to do this through Keenan because they keep it up to date and they're our insurance carrier. So we take care of this through that process. And we know it's current every year because they only give us current trainings.
Okay. And I'll just give another plug for Keenan because that keeps our insurance and all that kind of stuff down. So please, I've started mine. I did my test one today.
We have a lot of employees who are done, believe it or not. They've done a great job. Yeah.
That's amazing under a year of high anxiety and high stress. That's
I'm just happy.
Great news.
Change the video so it's something.
Yes, a little different every year.
Okay. And then we have 4119.43 universal precautions.
That's also covered by Keenan.
Okay. That was my question too. How's that being distributed? Anybody else have any questions on that one?
It might have been on this one. I mean, I know the Keenan covers that these are these are exposures to staff, but it doesn't really tell you your symptoms. It seemed like somewhere I read that we need to tell them what the symptoms are, which is kind of crazy. So maybe somewhere it covers it. I don't know.
It might be on one of those notices that's stuck on the wall that they send you annually to put up. I'm guessing.
Okay. And then
parental notifications are really easy and they are covered. We get the legal update from Nancy Klein's people.
From school college legal.
Thank you. And they send us the exact things to put into the parent handbook. And then I make sure and double check that the correct associated policies go in there too. But everything they send us the whole printed thing in English and Spanish. So it's totally and utterly up to date every year.
And it was all available through Aries and we have it in our public documents. So it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Super good reading.
Okay, and then BP 66020 parent involvement. Is this the Title One? I didn't write that.
Yes, it's the Title
Wendy,
One.
Okay, I have notes on this one.
86.
This is the one that we had to put on the front page of the website, Wendy.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's my.
Right, there's my heavy sigh.
And Wendy has this in the back of her mind. That's what I just wrote down. I mean, all this kind of stuff in there.
And we're also including this in our opening site council meetings.
Okay.
And then we actually held a Title I meeting during COVID so we could meet this requirement.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then what about is it 1% that you're supposed to use on family engagement activities? And is that stuff that you
is set aside and I am keeping track of it.
Great. And that's nothing new. That quantity to hold back for engagement or
the requirement to do it, it's always been a suggestion. I think the requirement and the amount is a relatively new thing.
Okay.
Okay, I do have a note that there's something optional on page 96 and 97. Now I have to scroll down and get there.
Okay, so it's item 7.
Oh, it's the 8, yeah.
Are optional and should be revised to reflect district practice.
Yeah, so
the blue stuff was already in the policy that we had. So that means it was just moved from somewhere else. So we did already have it in the policy.
Okay. So then all of them can stay there then, or that's the way we've had it.
That's the way we've had it.
Okay. Is everybody okay with leaving them in there?
Yes, I had the same question.
Okay.
I just wanted to leave it highlighted so that you could see why it was all blue, to be honest.
Okay. And you know what? I never knew what the blue was. Now I know that's moved from somewhere else. I got the red and the green, but I never knew what the blue was.
No, blue is current verbiage, just different place.
Okay. All right. Then I have another.
Becky's frozen.
Page
She's going to have to log in and log out. Oh, sorry. What was your question, Kathy?
I have another thing that looks PP spelled at page 114. Let me get there.
114.
PP. Now, what was that? Paragraph. Oh God, I don't know. You guys can talk if there's anything. Let me see if I can refresh my memory here. Oh, spelled out 114. Wait.
Guest speaker?
Oh boy.
I don't see anything kind of jumping off the page here.
Well, my other note is that, and maybe this all goes together. I don't know. It was been a few days ago I read this, but it says, if I understood it, that that notification says that it'll go out when the student's enrolled. And my experience is that as a parent and as a former school employee, that we gave it when the students were going to be exposed. For example, when Mary was going to do, some kind of controversial / sex ed discussion, she would notify parents at that time, not when I enrolled a 9th grader from Three Rivers, So I just wanted to make sure that whatever this says is what we're doing, and whether we should modify that. Because as a parent, I don't want to know when I enroll my kid in kindergarten that in 7th grade, they're going to hear, for one,
right,
depending on what the topic is. I'm not sure what, but I did write that underneath my PP. I don't know what PP is. Maybe it's PD. That's what it is.
Oh, PD.
It's PD for professional development.
Okay.
So, because I would think that it might be happening twice. Maybe this might be in notices in the handbook to say that you're going to be covering, human trafficking and HIV.
Okay.
And then you would want to know, as a parent, they were talking about it like this week, so you could kind of.
Well,
right. And when they were having the blue door came in, Mary would always send out notification to the parents. They could always pull their child.
Right.
Right. And I think I'm pretty sure that there is some notification in the annual handbook, parent handbook about it as well, that says and it all says about it being age appropriate and grade appropriate.
Okay, so we've got it covered both times.
Yeah, so it's covered in more than one layer.
I guess I never read that little yellow book cover.
I've read it every year for the last 5 years.
I was going to say, I've read it a few times. Not this year.
Now I've read it every time my kids were in school. But
it's fascinating. It actually has some good information in it, because you think, oh, wow, that's pretty clear. People are always surprised when something comes down, but it's like, it's it's in there, black and white. So we skipped over ceremonies and observances, but I don't think there was anything controversial. I think it was just updating some language and adding student may choose not to participate in a flag salute.
Yeah, there was a change in Cesar Chavez and Native American Day, and a section on commemorative exercises. And I think it was more clarification than change.
I don't have any other notes. That was my last one.
Yeah, the last one is pretty, it's just clarifying that the DA can send you a cure and correct if you have a Brown Act violation. Nothing.
That was interesting, but
cease and desist letter.
But then all you have to do to respond is say that you won't do it again.
Right, exactly. So at least it's giving you an opportunity to have a conversation to fix your action.
okay. So does anybody have any other questions or concerns about any of the new, or not new, updated policies?
No.
Okay. This was one of the easier ones, I think.
I thought, Anna, you didn't send these ahead. I said 120 pages, but it went pretty well. And it was, like you said, it wasn't bad. I fell over my seat when I saw that. I thought, oh my God.
Punishment.
There was a lot of board policy references, so you could scroll through some of it pretty quickly.
Right.
Okay. And everybody that needs to approve or review those, I know everybody's strapped for time right now, but the people that have to implement these have all, Wendy,
Yes.
you, okay.
Wendy's
Awesome.
done that one particular one.
The title one, yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, so they'll come to us as is. Sounds
Okay.
like next month.
And we'll
Okay.
clean them up. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So 11.5, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about our, it looks like we will be remote for longer than we thought. So we never really established any kind of norms or protocols for us as a board. And I just wanted to make sure that we kind of discuss that a little bit before we keep moving into the school year on this virtual world. So Anna sent this to me a month or so ago when we talked about it, we meaning agenda setting. It's from Adena Public Schools. It's the one I Googled and spent some time online today. Most things I think we're pretty good at as far as muting and cell phones and, things like that, not multitasking. Is there anything that we feel as a board that we need to address? I know, unfortunately, and I don't know if we want to table it, we don't have all 5 of us here this evening. If we want to wait until all 5 are here.
Well, we could put it on the agenda for next time as well. But did you attach
I didn't.
Okay, so
No.
I thought I didn't review that, so I don't know any other good ideas. I just wrote down.
Anna, do you still have that in your email, or can I share that quickly? Or
You're muted, Anna. And I just want to acknowledge, I had a parent ask me how we could even talk about bringing kids back to school if our board meetings were still remote. And I had made the comment to the parent that we could meet together and be 6 feet apart. The hard part is we'd have to be fully masked. Do you want, I think it's really important for our community to see our faces when we're talking so that they can understand what we are emoting if we are talking about something that's tricky. So if this board would like to go back to live meetings, we can do that. We do need to manage the public, though. That's the part that makes me nervous. If there are people who want to be in the board meeting, we have to make sure that folks are 6 feet apart. And so I have no problem with us going back. I do worry that if we are fully masked, that there's going to be potentially something lost in translation. So it's up to you as a board. I will say that the remote meetings are not as personal, but I do appreciate being able to see you nod, being able to see your facial expressions, being able to have the conversations with you. So I know that there's technical difficulties with Scott tonight. So, just to the public, acknowledged that we get it. If we were back together, we would be fully masked.
Well, my only comments is I think that I've had conversations, well, I guess a conversation we might have had at one of the meetings, probably in March or April, probably at the very end, about advanced planning of when we can go back to the boardroom, because I agree there's something lacking in this process, but at the same time, it's super convenient that I can just walk in my backyard and go to this private room and be on. I don't have to travel, but there's got to be a kind of a happy medium, and I think the public aspect of it, because we can't really. I figured you needed to check with the health officer to find out. I mean, that would be kind of hosting a gathering, and that's not really allowed unless you're doing curbside. So I don't know if we can do curbside public comment where the window's open. But I also feel for the tech. I don't know, would the tech person be there with us? And if we do like a hybrid meeting where we rotate.
Well, the hard part right now is that we can't have gatherings over 6. If there are 4, right. If there are 5 board members and the superintendent, well, there's 6. So there will be people who will have to remote in. Mm-hmm. So for right now, look who we have on the screen right now. I mean, with the 5 board members, Ann and I and Wendy, we're the consistent ones. There's 8. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to keep it remote until we're able to go back. I have no problem when the order goes, allows us to have more than 6 people in a room, that we can go back and we could try a meeting if you want to do it fully masked. It's up to you as a board.
Right. I mean, my thinking is, I've been working since March, and so social distancing and wearing a mask is not a big deal, and adults can be safe, but I worry about the public aspect of it. I mean, because I don't want to complicate the staff, as well, trying to figure out, random, if you have to do it. I don't know how that worked with the board chat this morning. If you have people that want to speak, that can be brought into the meeting and then, leave, or if you really do leave a window open and you only have, I don't know what the answer is, because you'd still have to probably have that board meet email.
Well, I think the email is, we send that out with the announcement of the board meeting. People have emailed in, so we know that folks are getting it. The board chat this morning, I thought, was successful. I think we continue to do that, and we have that arena for families and for people who would like to participate. We had Faith Simon participate. She doesn't have kids in our school district. She said, I'm here because I'm worried about families and I'm part of the community. Fantastic. So I think we have things that we could do more effectively. And I love that the board chat happened today. And I love that we had 7 people. That was fantastic. I mean, for us, that's a big deal. So Anna.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that we had several more people who were interested in the board chat who didn't know about the board chat, but kind of seemed a lot more enthusiastic to try it, knowing that they could just remote in. And they didn't feel, the social aspects of it. And so there was a lot of people asking questions too. So that was good.
So do you think that option would be something we need to do at board meetings, or not necessarily at this time, to allow, instead of doing the email, that someone could, because I don't want to, I don't know how to word this. When they're done speaking, can you, tell them thank you, and then they get clicked off so that, or how does that work? Because that's usually when I can mute or remove anybody at any time. It's not
fine. I'm the one that set the meeting up, so
okay.
It could work quite well.
Hey Anna, is there the city has a system? It's like an e-comment system. I don't know if you can talk to someone there and see if they have something we could use that would help facilitate public comment. Okay.
I'll check into it.
Okay.
It was nice this morning that people could ask questions directly. I thought it went really well.
Well, and remember that the board meetings are not for asking questions directly.
No, that's
right. The wonderful thing about the board chat, it's really an informal conversation. Mm-hmm. Ask your questions. In a board meeting, you have public comment on agenda items and public comment on non-agenda items, because the board meeting is your opportunity as a board to meet, right? It's your opportunity to discuss. So the public is invited to watch. The public is invited to make comment on agenda items and non-agenda items, but it's not an exchange with the public.
Right. That's why I wanted to know if you could kind of remove them off the meeting, because it's truly, like you said, for them to have the opportunity to speak, because maybe someone doesn't type and they don't want to type, I don't know. I just, as a barrier, if it was that, if it was pretty easy to set up, I just didn't know if that was burdening the staff to offer that for the public. comment in addition to the typing of the comment.
Well, and if someone wanted to call in, we could easily put them on my speakerphone.
Okay. So we kind of got diverted, I think. We wanted to know about the protocols. Is that right?
Right. So this, Anna, did you get that? I sent it back to you. So, for example, the first thing is mute your microphone. Oh. Okay. So this document, the first that Anna's going to put up here, the first thing is to mute your microphone prior to enter the meeting. And I think we do a pretty good job at that. We sometimes stumble with the whole motion and raising our hand and stuff, but I think we're getting it. And then the second one is keep your camera on during the duration of the meeting. Third is join the meeting at least 15 minutes prior, which we have closed session. So I don't really think that is an option. Regular meetings will be live streamed and recorded in a similar fashion to normal. So we've, all votes will be taken by a roll call. So that we're doing. And then you must be heard when taking a vote. So I think we do that, but that's, of course, has to be done for appropriate, Robert's Rules of Order. And then if you're having an issue speaking, raise your hand. We're using that tool as well. And then reports will not be projected, but we have that ability. So this, and we can, that would, obviously we wouldn't need that. And then you need to be present. If you need to present your screen, first close all unwanted tabs and applications. And then if your connection drops or you close out of the meeting by accident, rejoin using the link provided. So some of this is kind of common sense, but like I said, this one came up first, but Anna had already sent it to me. But I did look at some other, because it's a sign of our times. Meetings are going virtual, and a lot of things were old, kind of board meetings for, corporations that have to meet with people all over the country. But another thing was close any unnecessary tabs to eliminate external distractions. It seems to, honestly, I think in board or meetings that I have in life, it seems to be more of an issue when you're in person, that people are doing, on your computer doing stuff versus, listening to whatever's happening at the meeting. So it actually, in my opinion, in general, it seems like that happens less because you can see right at what you're looking at. So it's just something, whether we, now we've seen that it's an issue with children, whether, I'm in this probably not great lighting room, but this is a space I can get away from my family. This red wall is probably not the best to see me, but that's fine too. But, so what do we want to do? Do we want to make sure that we are live when we can be, muted when we can be? Anyway, I just wanted to open it up for discussion.
I like maybe having to add this to our board handbook when it goes for the next roll. But I'm going to admit, I watched a state board meeting, and they're formal, but they also have the same little hiccups we have. If they turn themselves off, I mean, everyone's kind of blundering through all of that. But what caught me by surprise was they took roll call before they started, and they had to see you. Like, they had the camera on, and they said that it's a quorum issue if you can't be seen. And then if they had a break, they had their staff roll call again. So that's really formal, but I don't, but it also was really clear because you don't want anyone to think you don't have a quorum. So the camera was important to them, and that's at the state level. But, that's not us, but I was taken back because I'd never really considered that. But that was what they took that very seriously.
So when the vote was taken, everybody, you had to hear your voice and see your face.
Right, but they were even formal at the beginning of the meeting. They actually took roll call. They'd have Anna take roll call, and then if they took a break, they took roll call again, and everyone's camera was on. Their faces were present because it could be a quorum issue if they can't. And they obviously are in Sacramento, so they don't have connectivity issues because some people don't have, if they didn't have a Gmail, they'd only be a letter or a call in, but I don't know how they handle that. imagine you can get around it during the pandemic. But I just thought they really took that they were very formal about that. Might be something to research.
Well, Gmail has actually just launched Meet on the phone app. So if you have Gmail on your phone, there's a Meet button at the bottom now. So there's absolutely really no excuse not to have a picture, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Not to have video of yourself.
Or at least just for the roll call, you know.
Gotcha.
Unless you're really out of cell phone, and then you probably shouldn't be in the meeting.
So, Anna, have you seen anything else that we could possibly, we have a quorum tonight. I mean, have you seen an issue with not having face or, I mean, we've had voice. So are you comfortable with that as far as roll call and parliamentary procedure?
I think if there was an issue with voting, if there was maybe really was close to being a quorum, it would concern me not to see Scott's face, for example. But because you are actually for, that issue is not going to arise. But if it was the three of you and then one of my earphones is buzzing. If it was the three of you and one of you I couldn't see, I think that would definitely be an issue because it would take you down below the two-thirds votes and below a quorum on a vote.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it's advisable to have everybody's face, but you know.
Okay. All right. Well, are we comfortable with, because our next turn to go through the handbook is December-ish, December, January. Do you think we're functioning well enough right now to just kind of do what we can to kind of model these things and don't put us in a bind where we could put Anna in an uncomfortable position, and which then puts everybody at an uncomfortable and vulnerable situation. So we don't want to do that either. We're in I don't want to be presumptuous, but we are in a pretty good space with the public right now. So I don't want to ruin that. But
I do think based on the last two meetings, like it said in these notes, be present 15 minutes before. I know you have closed session, but we need to get Nate rolling earlier. So maybe if we started rolling at 10 minutes too, and even if there was just Nate and myself or Nate and Nate in the meeting, and just everybody be super aware that when you go into the meeting, there's no chit chat, but it's rolling and you can just click in and knowing that it is rolling.
I think that's a better way to go. I like that idea.
Well, why don't we just make a note to be done with closed session by 5:50, and then
we can run both meetings concurrently. You can still be in your closed session all the way up to 6 o'clock. Just make sure that you know when you go into the open session, the camera's going to be on you at anything after 10 to 6.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure that I make notes to let Jerry know of that change, just so when he comes in next month.
So is the handbook and the self-evaluation the same meeting?
I think that's usually our workshop.
Okay, that's different. Okay, good. Okay, because I was thinking,
no, it's not the organizational meeting. It's at a workshop.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're okay with just not have anything formal in place and just add it to the handbook later?
Right. Take the notes that we did tonight, and then we can add it a virtual meeting protocol in the handbook.
Okay. Because I do think it does have a time, like this morning's board chat may really be well suited for a virtual. And also Diana and I have talked about how agenda setting, it saves a lot of time in our mornings where you just click in, click out, and it probably eliminates some chit chat in Becky's office too, that
right.
So you can get to work faster.
And I mean, when school is in session, it is tough to get to your office because you feel like you're getting in with the families trying to get to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So anything else on that? I'm sure there's no public comment.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, I guess if they don't like the way we're doing it. So I guess that with that being said, if there's anybody still watching at this hour, and you do have a concern for us and how we are conducting ourselves virtually, so please let me know. You can email me that and not bother Becky, kbabcock@fbusd.us.
Or
And,
you could, it's not a bother, never a bother.
You're trying to open school, Becky.
I know.
Okay. Other. So advanced planning. Does anybody see any? We have our two, which is the next item. We have our two meetings to address the learning continuity and accountability plan, as well as our regular September meeting. Do we see any other needs at this moment to add dates to the calendars?
No, I mean, I did see that the CSBA conference is virtual, but we're an off year. Is that right? Because this is, I don't know where it would normally be, but it sounds like it'll be a reduction, but I'm sure it'll be still quite pricey, but it's early December. So I didn't know if that's something that we'd be maybe doing next year, not this year.
I think it's awesome that it's virtual, and I was actually thinking about paying for it myself when they gave the hybrid thing. But there's a few things in the way that I won't know whether I need to go in December. But I think PD has been, we're not doing any, right?
Right.
So as a board, we're not going anywhere or paying for even a virtual.
We talked about having a 1-year moratorium on travel and conference. So I would just say that this is not the year to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you. There's a ton of free TV on YouTube, the CSB. I mean, there is an abundance, too much.
More than anyone could attend.
Right. So I think we're getting I got my PD for 2 years, last 2 months.
But I missed the last rotation, so I was getting a little bit of an itch to go. So we'll see. Maybe they'll not have very many people and they'll really drop it down. So it wouldn't be a huge hit to the pocketbook. But okay, so we'll leave the 3 meetings in September, and looking forward, we have one. Well, there's red marks that we could have a special for a budget meeting, but on our list, but Wendy says no. Okay. All right. Housekeeping. Monday, teacher and class assignments will be issued to our littles. I know high school is out. I don't know. Maybe that includes middle school too, because I haven't heard from them.
Dana Gray announced.
Yeah,
they have them. Okay.
They for all sites. And I think Redwood and Dana Gray have issued those. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then Wednesday is our first day of virtual learning. I'm very excited to see what my household looks like that morning. All right. So if we don't have anything else, I will ask for Jerry's not here to adjourn us.
So I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
All right. And a second.
I second.
All right. All those in favor? I never really get that far, but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.